I became the god of light. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction. So please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story in all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter. And if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. The men of the Ice Tribe revealed bloodthirsty and ferocious smiles. The numerical advantage emboldened them. The priestess, her face etched with wrinkles, scanned the invading group with sharp eyes. Her gaze immediately fell upon the 20 divine warriors at the head of the procession. Even without her power, she sensed a familiarity about them, and an unease crept into her heart. "Which tribe are you from? What brings you to our Ice Tribe?" she demanded bluntly. Her gaze then fell upon a young man in the crowd, instantly drawing her attention. He was a boy dressed in strikingly beautiful, unusual clothing, standing out among the men clad in animal skins. She was momentarily stunned. She had only ever seen such clothing on people from large tribes. She was even surprised to find that the material of his clothes seemed even better than that of the larger tribes. Shaking her head, she thought it was probably just her limited experience. The nobles of the larger tribes must wear similar garments, which she simply hadn't seen before. Realizing this, the priestess was secretly alarmed. Are these people from a large tribe? What do they want? After the priestess spoke, the other tribesmen beside her, lacking her knowledge, immediately retorted viciously, "You dare to come to our Ice Tribe with only these people? You're courting death?" Faced with the enemy's malicious words, the leader standing at the forefront smiled. "I am the leader of the Yanhuan tribe. I think you should have guessed our purpose. Your tribesmen left a deep impression on us that day. I swore then that I would repay you one day, and it seems that day has come." Hearing the burly man's words, the Ice Tribe members were stunned for a moment, then their eyes blazed with deep-seated hatred and murderous intent. "It's you, you damned Yanhuan tribe people. You dare to come to our Ice Tribe? You're all dead this time." They were furious, their curses ringing out one after another. Cruel and ferocious expressions appeared on their faces as they began to fantasize about how they would tear these people to pieces. Aside from these people blinded by hatred, a small number of them remained clear-headed. The priestess's heart skipped a beat, a bad feeling creeping in. Are there any divine warriors among these people? There was no other possibility that such a small group would dare to offend their tribe. What's there to be afraid of? This time, we'll let you experience the despair we felt back then, the chieftain sneered. As he spoke, white light emanated from his hand, dazzling even in golden sunlight, captivating all who looked away. Divine warriors, expressions of shock and terror appeared on their faces. Not good. The priestess's face changed, and she was about to say something to her people. But before she could speak, the chieftain exchanged glances with the other divine warriors and shouted, "Attack!" The Yanhuan warriors roared. One after another, 20 beams of white light shone brightly, chilling the hearts of the Ice Tribe members who had lost their divine warriors, their faces filled with disbelief. Shock was followed by bewilderment. So many divine warriors. This was impossible for a small tribe. How could a tribe of a few hundred people have so many divine warriors? Just as they were in disbelief, 20 divine warriors charged directly into the crowd. The remaining ordinary tribesmen stayed behind to clean up the mess. The chief didn't want any casualties. Not good. The priestess's expression changed. Seeing the enemy arrive while most of the tribesmen were still in a daze, she immediately shouted, "Stop them!" This shout snapped the Ice Tribe tribesmen back to their senses, and instinctively, some rushed forward to defend. Roars echoed continuously. But the next second, screams rang out. The chief and the others were covered in white light, and white fists slammed down on them. Upon contact, the Ice Tribe tribesmen had no ability to resist at all. They crumbled almost instantly, screaming as they flew backward. Even so, it was only because the chief and his men spared them that these people were killed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a matter of fists, and they would have been dead long ago. The white light from the bone knives attacking them was like a tickle, not harming them in the slightest. Hearing the screams, the chief and his men froze, staring blankly at their own fists, utterly astonished. Although they had known they were powerful, they hadn't expected them to be this powerful. There hadn't been any comparison before, but now it was immediately apparent. These ordinary people were no match for them. With a goal of capturing them alive, They continued to swing their fists, striking their enemies relentlessly. Screams rose and fell, the ordinary people having absolutely no ability to resist, fragile and vulnerable. You, the priestess, seeing the miserable state of her people, paled, her eyes filled with resentment and hatred. Ha ha ha! The chief and his men laughed and cried at the same time, feeling a sense of revenge. Looking at the people lying on the ground before them, the scene seemed strangely familiar, only this time the positions had changed, and it was their Yanhuang tribe crushing the Ice tribe. Thank God, the chieftain murmured. In the blink of an eye, over 100 people had fallen around them. It's over, the priestess's eyes were filled with despair. A way, she had to find a way. As she thought, she inadvertently noticed the 100 or so Yanhuang clansmen left in the distance, and an idea flashed through her mind. These people should be ordinary people, if, her gaze shifted to the richly dressed young man in the crowd. There's only one way, the priestess's expression turned sinister. While ordering her clansmen to hold off the enemy as much as possible, she secretly gave an order. In the distance, Suyun watched the chieftain and his men slaughtering everyone, a look of satisfaction in his eyes. Chieftain, go, well done, excited shouts rang out from the side. As Suyun watched, he suddenly noticed something. He saw that nearly 100 people had taken advantage of the chieftain and his men's attention being focused on the battle, circling around from another corner and rushing straight towards them. Interesting, Suyun's lips curled into a faint smile. Target that kid from now on, proceed according to plan, a middle-aged, dignified man ordered in a low voice. Yes, the man next to him replied menacingly, his malice practically overflowing as he looked at the fair-skinned boy in the distance. Chapter 254, bringing the whole part back to the tribe. That kid looks like an important figure. Once we capture him, let's see what these guys do then, and we can also vent our anger on that boy. The Yanhuang people also noticed the approaching crowd. Everyone, be careful, they grip their stone spears tightly, their expressions extremely vigilant. Protect the Holy Sun, someone shouted instinctively. Instantly, a large group of people surrounded Suyun, fearing he might be harmed, which made him somewhat amused and exasperated. Just then, Suyun suddenly noticed that those people's gazes were frequently fixed on him, their malice barely concealed. They're coming for me, he wondered, somewhat surprised. Before he could think further, the two sides clashed, shouts of anger filling the air. Seeing some of his people injured, he frowned. I didn't want to intervene. Suyun shook his head, unsure whether to say these people were insightful or just unlucky. Instantly, he connected with the threads of faith, and a surge of divine power poured in. Healing spell, with a wave of his hand, layers of pale green aurora appeared, its power immense, easily enveloping the entire Ice tribe. The dazzling colors dazzled everyone, causing the battle to instinctively halt. The wounded Yanhuang tribesmen were enveloped in the aurora, which passed through them, dispelling the pain and rapidly healing their bloody wounds. In just a second, the wounded tribesmen were completely healed, far surpassing the healing achieved by the old priest and others. Both the enemy and the Yanhuang tribesmen were incredulous. Then, everyone looked at Suyun. This is a miracle, the chief muttered to himself. Nearly 100 Ice tribe members who had rushed over froze. This was no weak youth, he was clearly a hidden monster. Their faces stiffened, a look of despair on their faces. The priestess stared intently at the man, her face filled with disbelief. Impossible, such a vast area. She had never seen divine magic with such a wide range before. She knew about the god of light of the Yanhuang tribe. This man was definitely not the god of light. Who is this person? Under the gaze of over 1,000 people, Suyun's body emanated a holy white light, slowly floating 3 feet off the ground, appearing incomparably divine. Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, he continued to unleash his power. A large expanse of white light erupted from his body, the intense radiance quickly covering every member of the Ice tribe. A heavy, binding force pressed down on them, rendering them immobile. Take them back, Suyun said calmly. The Yanhuang tribesmen responded dumbly, hurriedly running to retrieve the vines they had prepared beforehand, quickly binding the Ice tribe members. Even with ample preparation, the vines were insufficient, far from meeting the needs of over 1,000 people. Left with no other choice, Suyun could only have his tribesmen gather them together and herd them towards the Yanhuang tribe like sheep. The Ice tribe members looked utterly dejected, their faces ashen and filled with despair. Along the way, due to the lack of vines, there had been several instances of resistance. The most serious attempt involved the priestess and the Ice Tribe chief joining forces to escape, but Su-Yun swiftly and violently suppressed them. Afterwards, as a precaution, he flew above the group, monitoring and intimidating the prisoners to prevent further trouble. Perhaps they had submitted. Or perhaps some conspiracy was brewing, but no further incidents occurred. The chief looked at the prisoners with worry. He should have been happy, but seeing so many people, his joy vanished. So many of them, can our Yanhuang tribe really handle them? He wondered anxiously. Those nearby frowned upon hearing this. The young, burly chief, who was being specially protected by the vines, and the priestess, having overheard their conversation, wore cold, hateful sneers. Just wait and see how your tiny tribe manages to swallow so many of us without even worrying about choking to death. The middle-aged priestess's face was full of mockery. Su-Yun, flying in the sky, easily took in the expressions of the priestess and the others. Looks like I'll have to give you a little ideological education soon. A flash of pity crossed Su-Yun's eyes. I hope you'll still be laughing then. He already had a solution for the series of situations that might arise from such a large group, such as confusing the hierarchy or rebellion. With their families in tow, they walked very slowly. The distance of 12 kilometers took them more than 2 hours to reach the Yanhuang tribe. By this time, the sun had moved to a slightly higher position in the sky, and the warm golden sunlight dispelled the chilly air for everyone. When they arrived at the entrance of the Yanhuang tribe, the tribe's people who had been anxiously waiting inside were surprised to see the large group. But before their weary eyes could even rise, their attention was drawn to the holy sun flying in the air. The holy sun and the others are back, a joyful shout echoed throughout the entire tribe. After a flurry of footsteps, the old priest led the other tribesmen out to greet them. Seeing the number of people, they gasped, so many people. A worried look appeared in the old priest's eyes. The captives from the Ice tribe and other tribes looked at the wooden houses with amazement in their eyes, subconsciously comparing them to their own tribe's houses, and had to admit that the others' houses were slightly better. Su-Yun descended from the sky, unsurprisingly receiving a wave of admiring, envious, and hateful gazes. The old priest came to his side, sighed, and whispered, "Holy Sun, so many people are beyond my capacity." The sheer number of them was overwhelming. He was truly afraid that his old arms and legs would one day disappear. "We will hold a ceremony. The gods will bestow miracles later. They have already foreseen all of this," Su-Yun explained gently. The old priest's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly went to call for reinforcements. The leader approached. "Holy Sun, what should we do with those people?" Su-Yun pondered for a moment. "Send some people over. Have them build the wooden huts during the day, and they can stay in the open space at night. Holy Sun, aren't you afraid they'll escape?" The leader scratched his rough, messy hair, his eyes showing surprise. Su-Yun said gently, "They are all lost sheep. We should treat them all equally. Once guided by God, they will find their way out of their confusion and walk on the path God has ordained." The leader scratched his hair again, feeling a bit overwhelmed. The Holy Sun is indeed the Holy Sun. Even his words are so profound, he couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 255 Methods for Solving Difficult Problems. Soon, at the old priest's call, all the Yanhuang people gathered together to prepare for the sacrifice. Su-Yun gestured to the people behind him, instructing them to drive the Ice tribe people towards the altar as well. With preparations complete, the sacrifice began. The Ice tribe people watched the Yanhuang people performing the sacrifice, their eyes flashing with disdain and hatred. "Let me see what your Yanhuang tribe is capable of," the priestess thought with a sneer. Now, seeing the true number of Yanhuang people, her confidence grew even stronger, and a series of schemes and plots even surfaced. She thought that when they relaxed their guard, she would lead her people in rebellion and escape. If it weren't for the tribe's gods, she might even have considered taking their place. While she was lost in thought, the sacrifice was nearing its end. The Yanhuang people knelt down in unison, gazing at the divine stone with piety and worship. "That is the Yanhuang tribe's sacred object," the priestess mused, a hint of apprehension flashing in her eyes. "And what are they doing? Will the god of light appear?" Just as they were thinking this, the Ice tribe members saw the white stone suddenly burst forth with a dazzling white light. Their vision blurred, and when they could see clearly, a huge, golden object with mysterious patterns on its surface instantly appeared in the open space in front of the divine stone. Under the golden sunlight, the object refracted a brilliant golden light, looking exquisite and captivating. "A treasure," the old tortoise in the distance exclaimed, its eyes lighting up. What is this thing? The priestess frowned, the golden color almost blinding her. The old priestess and the others stared in astonishment and confusion at the golden object before them. Suyun, the only one standing in the crowd, noticed the puzzled expressions of the old priestess and the others and explained, "This is the Ark of the Covenant of the Throne of God, a divine artifact belonging to the gods." Hearing this, the Yanhuang tribe members, already attracted by the golden color, showed even more surprise and joy in their eyes. The Ice tribe members, upon hearing it was a divine artifact, were filled with disbelief. Even their Ice tribe's ice god didn't possess a divine artifact, yet this small tribe of a few hundred people actually had one. Impossible. I don't believe it, the priestess sneered. This must be some kind of trap set by the god of light to lure us in. I think it's just an ordinary object, at most a bit pretty, 8 tribesmen whispered in agreement. The priestess is so clever. These Yanhuang tribesmen are truly cunning, we almost fell for their trick. A wave of annoyance washed over the Ice tribe members, then they looked at the Yanhuang tribesmen and the golden object, a cold smile spreading across their faces. The more they thought about it, the more certain they became. They simply didn't believe the Yanhuang tribe possessed any so-called divine artifact, let alone a divine throne. It was probably just an ordinary object. Holy Sun, what are the effects of this divine artifact? The old priest couldn't help but ask. He thought of the eyeball the god had given him before, wondering what power this one possessed. Every morning, this divine artifact will replace the god in bestowing food upon you, Suyun replied. The old priest was stunned. Food, Suyun said calmly, you should have seen it before. It's the white bead that God bestowed upon us, that's it. The Yanhuang tribesmen and the old tortoise's eyes lit up, their gazes fixed on the Ark of the Covenant with a burning desire. Suyun noticed their expressions and frowned slightly. This food is different from the last one. It doesn't have any enhancing effects, it only fills your stomachs, it descends every morning, and you must finish it on the first day, otherwise it will spoil and become inedible. After thinking for a moment, he added, this is something God specially sent down for those captives. You cannot eat it, you must hunt for yourselves. Upon hearing this, the old priest and the others were first disappointed that there was no special effect, and then they were astonished. Astonished that God only gave food to those sinners, this stirred feelings of jealousy in their hearts. Seeing their expressions, Suyun knew what they were thinking and couldn't help but explain, God will one day take back the Ark of the Covenant. You must not become dependent on it, otherwise you will be going against God's original intention. He didn't want his tribesmen to all become dependent on the Ark of the Covenant and develop the habit of not knowing how to obtain food. Ultimately, this was just a temporary food supply machine. Once the tribesmen were self-sufficient, he would take back the Ark of the Covenant. I see. After a moment's thought, the Yanhuang tribesmen suddenly realized, feeling somewhat ashamed of their previous assumptions. The Ice tribe members in the distance, upon hearing that the object could actually produce food, immediately wavered in their initial belief that it was just an ordinary item. Could this really be a divine artifact? Someone exclaimed in astonishment. A divine artifact that can bestow food, the so-called Holy Sun's words filled them with doubt and uncertainty. The priestess, hearing the voices around her, felt as if she had been slapped in the face, her face turning red. She angrily retorted, don't be fooled by him. How could there be such a divine artifact that can produce food? Look at how many of us there are. This so-called divine artifact can feed everyone to their heart's content. The priestess chuckled coldly, as if she had found a flaw in the claim, and her conviction grew stronger. She continued, what makes this small tribe possess something that even the large tribes don't have? The priest is right, with so many of us, is this artifact really that miraculous? Hearing this, the other Ice tribe members, whose resolve had wavered, immediately hardened. The priestess smiled as she saw them recover. However, she was thinking of something else entirely. If this thing is truly that miraculous, if I find a chance to steal it, our Ice tribe can definitely rise again. Thinking this, her gaze towards the Ark of the Covenant was filled with greed. Just then, Suyun seemed to remember something and warned his tribesmen, non-believers must not touch the Ark of the Covenant, or they will be punished by the gods. No one may desecrate the Ark of the Covenant, or they will also be punished by the gods, he warned calmly, glancing at the Ice tribe members in the distance with a half-smile. The priestess was startled. He guessed it. Is he lying, or is it true? Thinking of divine punishment, she frowned. After a moment, a fierce glint flashed in the priestess's eyes. She wouldn't be satisfied without trying. After issuing the warning, Suyun didn't care anymore. If anyone really offended the Ark of the Covenant, he wouldn't be blamed. Before releasing the Ark, he had set several rules for it. Non-believers must not touch the Ark. No one may desecrate the Ark. To Suyun's surprise, these 2 rules were completed with almost no divine power. Thank you Su Beta for the 100 Kidian coins reward. Chapter 256 The Ark of the Covenant, Setting the Rules. Even if no divine power was consumed, these 2 rules were practically constant. He guessed that because they weren't area of effect and involved the Ark of the Covenant itself, the divine power consumption was negligible. Besides these 2 rules, he also set 2 other area of effect rules: no escape from the Yanhuan tribe. No attacking the Yanhuan people in any form. These 2 rules were the foundation of his confidence in wiping out the Ice tribe. Moreover, these 2 rules only consumed 10% of his divine power when set. Since they only involved the actions of ordinary people, the consumption required to maintain them was minimal, and he could replenish his divine power at any time through communication. Holy Son, the old priest suddenly hesitated, turning to look at the Ice tribe members. Suyun said gently, "Don't worry, the gods have made arrangements, they won't do anything inappropriate." The old priest and the others looked puzzled, wondering what arrangements the gods had made. Suyun naturally saw their expressions, but he didn't explain further. It was best not to expose core abilities like the Ark of the Covenant if possible. Hearing Suyun's resolute words from afar, the Ice tribe members scoffed inwardly, thinking this holy son was bluffing. Once the ritual was complete, Suyun dismissed his people. Some went to attend to other matters, while others curiously observed the Ark of the Covenant, but having heard his warning, none dared touch it. Just as Suyun was thinking this, the old tortoise suddenly rushed towards the Ark, circling it and examining it with astonishment. "What is this made of? It's so beautiful." It couldn't resist reaching out a claw to touch the Ark. The next second, a thick golden lightning bolt, before the old tortoise could react, struck down from the void with a deafening roar. The old tortoise let out a scream, trembling violently from the shock, its eyes rolling back, almost fainting. Suyun, he didn't know what to say. This was a real-life version of curiosity killed the tortoise. Luckily, this guy didn't do anything more outrageous, Suyun remarked. The old tortoise, barely a believer, hadn't violated the first rule, but unfortunately, he directly crossed the second. Treating the Ark of the Covenant like an object, showing no reverence and even wanting to play with it, was bound to get him struck down. Luckily, this rule was influenced by his own thinking. Such a minor offense would at most result in a lesson, not a fatal one. But if it were something like urinating on the Ark, that would be certain death. Luckily, I'm a good god. If the Ark really followed the rules of the real world, then gathering to watch the Ark would be blasphemy, punishable by death. Rumors in the real world say that once, a group of people watching the Ark killed it. Besides priests and those he approved of, anyone else who touched it died instantly. His first rule, that non-believers cannot touch it, was still in effect, though he showed a slight leniency. If the other party is unaware that they can't touch it, at most they'll be warned and punished with injury. But if they know the rules and still dare to touch it, non-believers will definitely die from the first touch. He was pondering this when he saw the old tortoise screaming and smoke billowing from its mouth, causing the crowd to retreat in terror. That guy wasn't lying after all. The priestess's eyes were filled with horror. Then she felt a surge of relief. Luckily, I didn't steal the thing, otherwise, not only her, but the other Ice tribe members also looked on in terror, staring at the Ark of the Covenant as if it were some terrifying object. At the same time, their belief in its divine status, previously confined by the priestess's words, began to waver. The Yanhuang tribe members were not as terrified, but their eyes were still filled with awe. At this moment, the old tortoise recovered from the lightning, let out a strange cry, and its 4 claws shot off like rockets, disappearing far away from the Ark of the Covenant. It looked at the Ark with lingering fear, no longer daring to touch it, a shadow hanging over its heart. Suyun found it somewhat amusing. After laughing, he glanced at the Ice tribe members, deciding he'd have to make them work eventually, so he abandoned the idea of starving them for a day. With that thought, he remotely activated the Ark of the Covenant's power through their connection. The next second, the startled crowd saw the once golden Ark of the Covenant suddenly change. Waves of golden light rippled across its surface, creating a dazzling and beautiful spectacle. The exclamation was barely audible when someone suddenly exclaimed, "Huh, what's wrong?" Someone asked. "Something fell on my head," the person said strangely. Those around him were puzzled, but before they could say anything, Objects suddenly rained down from the sky, striking them directly. Everyone stared in disbelief at the sky, only to see white beads, about the size of a fingernail, falling like raindrops from nowhere. Ah! Help! The Ice Tribe members screamed in terror, and the crowd instantly descended into chaos. The chieftain and his group remained calm, recognizing what it was. Food bestowed by the gods, they exclaimed joyfully, then noticed the panic among the Ice Tribe people and nearly burst out laughing. The priestess and the others froze, the implication of the Yanhuang people leaving them quite embarrassed. This is food, just as they were wondering, countless mana balls covered the entire ground before finally stopping falling. Suyun, feeling the effects of the mana's effects, smiled slightly. After canceling the energy contained in the mana, even if he covered the entire tribe's ground with a layer of mana, his divine power wasn't consumed much, not even 0.5%. Simply converting it into ordinary food, the quality of his divine power could convert a lot. The old tortoise couldn't help but lower his head and eat one. It still tasted the same, bland with a faint sweetness, but it really has no energy. The old tortoise was somewhat disappointed, then spat it out with a pooey. It's really disgusting. Suyun held 7 or 8 specially made mana in his hand and instructed the stunned chief, have those people from the Ice Tribe clean up the food on the ground. After they finish eating, have them start building wooden houses. Okay, the chief nodded. Suyun looked at the chief, who was scolding something as he walked to the priestess and the others, and popped a mana into his mouth while watching. It tastes good. As soon as it entered his mouth, a familiar, indulgent, silky chocolate flavor instantly filled his mouth, making the corners of his mouth curl up slightly. He popped another one into his mouth. The old tortoise noticed his actions from afar, a strange look on his face. He muttered, "Is it that delicious?" Saying this, he lowered his head and took another bite, then, tui. He spat it out. How could the Holy Sun eat something so awful? He exclaimed in disbelief. Unconvinced, his eyes darted around, and he dashed to Suyun's side, staring intently at the mana in his hand. Suyun, thanks to Demon King AC for the 100 Kidian coins reward. Chapter 257 Ideological Education. Even with Suyun's thick skin, he couldn't eat any more after being stared at by the tortoise. He turned his questioning gaze to the old tortoise, asking what it wanted. The old tortoise asked, "Holy Sun, is this really that delicious? Isn't it supposed to have no taste, no energy at all? How can you eat this?" it asked, its eyes darting around, then fixed its gaze on the mana in Suyun's hand. "It's so delicious, can I have one?" So it was after the mana in his hand. Suyun's lips twitched slightly. He wanted to ignore the guy, but the tortoise kept pestering him, which annoyed him to no end. In desperation, he threw one to it. The old tortoise's eyes lit up, and it accurately caught the food in its mouth. As soon as it entered his mouth, a special taste immediately reached his taste buds. It was sweet with a lingering, slightly bitter aftertaste. This flavor, which he had never tasted before, immediately won him over. What is this? He couldn't resist and swallowed the mana whole. Before he could even savor it, a pure and familiar energy immediately merged into the power of light within his body. The delicious taste and the pure energy. After realizing what it was, he stared at the few remaining mana pieces in Suyun's hand, his eyes burning with desire. "What is this? Why is yours different from the ones on the ground?" the old tortoise exclaimed excitedly. "This taste and the energy." Suyun's lips twitched slightly. He naturally couldn't tell the old tortoise that these few pieces were the result of his experimental, special treatment. He could already control the shape and taste of the mana produced by the Ark of the Covenant. He had simply recalled the chocolates he had eaten and tried to make it himself, and unexpectedly, it actually succeeded. He casually explained, "This is a gift from God." The old tortoise showed an expression of understanding, and then, seeing the remaining mana in his hand, he couldn't help but plead, "Respected Holy Sun, could you give me one of the rest?" He then gave him a pitiful look. Suyun's lips twitched slightly, and in the end, he could only offer another one to appease the old turtle's cringe-worthy cuteness. Just as he finished dealing with the old turtle and casually ate another chocolate-flavored mana, a new situation arose near the chief, drawing his attention. A furious shout rang out. "You Yanhuang tribe actually want to treat us like slaves," a middle-aged man sneered. "Don't even think about it. We will not submit," another burly man chimed in. The chief looked at the unruly Ice Tribe people before him and laughed in anger. "You haven't realized your situation yet." His face turned stern. "As prisoners of our Yanhuang tribe, you should know your place as prisoners, As soon as the chief finished speaking, the Ice Tribe people's faces flushed red, some of them enraged. A young man of about 17 or 18 years old with a rugged appearance shouted angrily, "I'll fight you to the death." Without another word, he charged straight at the chief with a fierce aura. A massive fist was raised, ready to strike the chief. Some of the more impulsive individuals nearby reacted quickly, noisily preparing to join in. This damned Yanhuang chief's words had enraged them, almost destroying their reason with rage. Moreover, the vague realization that the Yanhuang tribe didn't seem to want their lives emboldened them even more. "You're courting death?" the chief frowned. A ferocious glint in his eyes. He had no intention of showing mercy to those who dared to resist, and immediately wanted to kick the young man away. However, before either side could make a move, a bizarre scene unfolded. The impulsive young man, his fist not yet striking the chief, abruptly froze in midair, completely unable to move, a truly surreal sight. Feeling his body frozen in midair, the young man struggled desperately but couldn't break free, his face filled with panic. He cried out in terror, "What happened to me? What did you do to me?" The chieftain, who had been raising his foot, paused, staring at the scene in astonishment, completely bewildered. "Is this kid crazy?" The other Ice Tribe members were equally bewildered, not understanding what was wrong with him. However, they couldn't care less at this point, and a group of them surged forward to pounce on the chieftain. Unfortunately, the same bizarre scene continued. Just as the group was about to touch the chieftain's body, their bodies froze, unable to move an inch. Whether it was the Ice Tribe members watching from afar or the Yanhuang Tribe members, they all stared in astonishment and shock at this strange sight. "What happened to me? What did you do to me?" The frozen people cried out in terror. The chieftain was also completely confused, having no idea what was going on. The people hadn't even attacked yet, and they had already stopped. If it were just one person, he could say the other person was crazy, but for this whole group to be frozen in midair was definitely a problem. Just then, someone in the crowd suddenly regained their movement, drawing his attention. Just as he regained his footing, the man's face lit up with joy, and he raised his hand to strike again, but strangely, he stopped once more. The priestess, who hadn't yet made a move, had just recovered from the strange things that had fallen from the sky, and her shocked expression turned to terror. The leader vaguely understood. It seemed that as long as these people tried to attack him, they would be unable to move. The old priest, who had witnessed this scene from afar, rushed over, exclaiming excitedly, "Could this be God's arrangement?" Upon hearing this, the leader suddenly realized, recalling what the Holy Son had said earlier, this was indeed God's arrangement, so miraculous. Curiosity and worship over how God had done it instantly filled his heart. Hearing the old priestess's words, the Ice Tribe members realized that this terrifying situation was orchestrated by the God of Light, causing them, who already feared the God of Light, to tremble with fear. If this situation continued, wouldn't it mean they would have no power to retaliate and would be slaves for life? "This is the God of Light's method," the priestess murmured, her face filled with terror. No, she didn't want that. The thought of not even being able to cause harm filled her with despair. But then, a final hope flashed through her mind, and she exclaimed excitedly, "No, even if we can't hurt them, we can still run. At worst, we'll just avoid the Yanhuang tribe in the future. Yes, that's it." The more she thought about it, the brighter her eyes became, all despair vanished, and she began to plan her escape. The chieftain, realizing it was divine intervention, burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, now let's see how you resist. Do as I say obediently, or don't blame me for being impolite," he shouted sternly. Not being able to kill them didn't mean he couldn't severely injure them. If they truly disobeyed, he wouldn't be so ruthless. As a tribal chief, he had no concept of mercy. He boldly stepped forward and kicked them a few times, and when he realized they really couldn't harm him, he was completely relieved. He called to his people, instructing them to supervise the prisoners, ensuring they gathered the divinely bestowed food, and then to build the wooden huts. Anyone found slacking off would be punished. The Yanhuang people were filled with excitement, beating up these helpless enemies, their frustration dissipating considerably. Seeing the positive results, Suyun, watching from afar, also felt relieved and began to consider another matter. Next is ideological education, to make them abandon their outdated and corrupt ideas, and thus bask in the holy light. Stroking his chin, Suyun smiled. Soon, relying on modern knowledge, he devised a series of educational plans. Thanks to for the 359 Kidian coins reward. Thanks to for the 200 book coins reward. Thanks to for the 100 Kidian coins reward. Chapter 258 Escape. Using his modern knowledge, Suyun understood that the most effective and harmless method was a gradual and subtle approach. Choosing this method would mean waiting until those people realized what was happening, but by then it would be too late. After thinking for a while, Suyun decided to give them one night to come to their senses before taking action. While he was pondering this, the Ice Tribe members were being driven by the crowd to collect mana and build wooden houses. No matter how unwilling they were, they had no choice but to submit under the beatings. As the mana was collected and piled into a large mountain, the Yanhuang tribe made the Ice Tribe members come forward in batches to receive their share. The Ice Tribe members looked extremely reluctant. That white stuff really looks edible, won't it kill people? Most of them thought the same thing. After all, they had witnessed these things falling from the sky. No one would feel safe eating such strange things. Even though they were unwilling, the Yanhuang tribe ordered them to eat this from now on, and warned them that if they didn't, they could choose to go hungry. The thought of starving, even with their anger, forced them to reluctantly accept a portion, intending to decide later whether to eat it. After everyone had received their share, a large pile of mana remained in the open space. I wonder what it tastes like. I really want to try it. The young Yanhuang man smacked his lips. Come on, you want to disobey the god's decree, another young man warned. I just want to try it. The man was somewhat unconvinced. He knew it wasn't edible, he was just curious about the taste. While they were chatting, the Ice Tribe people were also talking. Priestess, this is that food. A middle-aged man wrapped a small pile of white mana in animal skin and presented it to the priestess. The priestess picked one up and squeezed it. As the mana was crushed, it crumbled into clumps of white powder. This stuff is edible? She asked suspiciously. Let me try, the middle-aged man volunteered, immediately picking up a piece and popping it into his mouth. A large group of people holding mana around him stared intently at him. The middle-aged man frowned, slowly savoring the taste. It was bland with a faint sweetness, the texture was so-so, but overall, in a primitive society lacking sweet foods, it was a rare treat. The taste is alright, he reluctantly commented. Are you feeling unwell? The priestess asked. No, the middle-aged man shook his head. Perhaps it's been too short a time, wait and see, the priestess said warily. She didn't believe the Yanhuang tribe was so kind. Perhaps they had left something hidden in the food, waiting for them to fall victim and never escape their slavery. After a while, everyone looked and saw that the middle-aged man still had a rosy complexion and showed no signs of illness, and some of them breathed a sigh of relief. It's alright, it's really edible. Some of the people, already starving due to the tribe's upheaval, were overjoyed. They eagerly grabbed the white mana and stuffed it into their mouths without a word, wolfing it down. The priestess frowned at the sight, about to reprimand them, but seeing their ravenous state, she remained silent. Priestess, would you like some? The middle-aged man asked with concern. No, thank you, the priestess shook her head. She wouldn't try it lightly until she knew if it was harmful. The middle-aged man understood her concerns and didn't try to persuade her further. As many of the Ice Tribe members ate the mana and filled their stomachs, their previously gloomy expressions changed, replaced by smiles. Seeing that they showed no ill effects for a while after eating it, the priestess could no longer remain calm and was secretly shocked. This is really food, or is it a so-called divine artifact, displaying unbelievable miracles? This small tribe actually has such a good thing, she simply couldn't believe it. She initially didn't believe it, but the smiles on her tribesmen's faces left her no choice but to accept it. Even large tribes don't have such a divine artifact. How come this small tribe of a few hundred people has something like this? The priestess exclaimed in astonishment. Not only the priestess's expression changed, but the Ice Tribe chief and the others were also shocked. If our Ice Tribe had such a thing, what would we be like? The priestess couldn't help but think. If the god hadn't died, and the tribesmen had continued to rely on this divine artifact for food, they could definitely have elevated the tribe to the level of a large tribe, or even more. A greedy glint appeared in her eyes. If the Ark of the Covenant's lightning hadn't frightened her earlier, she might have been planning to hide and find an opportunity to steal the divine artifact. As for the Holy Sun's statement that it couldn't be given to the Yanhuang tribesmen and was only for them, she scoffed at it. Why waste time hunting when there was perfectly good food to eat? Wasn't that stupid? After a while, once they had finished eating, the Yanhuang tribesmen from afar came over and ordered them to build wooden houses. Even though they were seething with hatred, they had no choice but to reluctantly cut down trees and build wooden huts as instructed. Time passed quickly, and night soon fell. The bright moonlight shone down from the sky, and the chirping of insects echoed throughout the forest, like a lullaby, luring people to sleep. In the newly cleared area, a cold wind blew, and the Ice Tribe members, exhausted from half a day's work, tightened their animal hides, shivering slightly. In a dark corner, the priestess solemnly surveyed her surroundings, looking at the many tribespeople, and said, "Are you ready? We'll charge out together in a moment." Yes, a series of faint but excited shouts rang out. They had truly had enough of this life of slavery. They had been used to driving slaves before, but now that they were slaves themselves, even half a day felt too long, and they had experienced the bitterness of slavery. After responding, the group glanced at the patrolling Yanhuang tribesmen in the distance, smiled contemptuously, and then split into several teams, charging aggressively out of the tribe from multiple directions. They didn't believe that these patrolling Yanhuang tribesmen could stop them. By the time the Yanhuang tribesmen realized something was wrong, it was too late. "Halt! What do you want to do?" a patrolling tribesman shouted. He stood in front of hundreds of people, displaying an aura of one man holding off 10,000, showing no fear of the overwhelming numbers. The Ice Tribe tribesmen snorted coldly, ignoring him and charging forward on their own. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 259. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. After several deliberate and unintentional probing attempts, they had long since realized that no matter how they attacked, it would be futile, so naturally they wouldn't waste their time on such an endeavor. A large group of people ran past a patrolling man, which angered him so much that he stepped forward and stopped a few unlucky individuals. Relying on divine protection, he attacked them. With a few cries of pain, these men were all knocked to the ground. Unfortunately, facing the surging crowd, even if he had several arms, he couldn't stop them. He could only watch helplessly as they ran further and further away. This scene was happening simultaneously in several corners, and the patrol teams were completely unable to stop them. "It's over, they're going to get away this time," someone exclaimed in panic. Just as they were filled with helplessness and fear, the Ice Tribe members were quite the opposite. Looking at the distance that was so close, and the fact that they were about to leave the tribe, they were all filled with excitement. Some of them couldn't help but shout a few times to express their excitement. Many sleeping Yanhuang tribesmen were directly awakened by them and rushed out of their houses, anxiously watching the fleeing figures. The priestess, running excitedly through the crowd, exclaimed, "Almost there. Almost there." In just a few seconds, they would be out of the Yanhuang tribe's territory. However, just as they were about to excitedly step out of the Yanhuang tribe's territory, a strange and familiar scene unfolded. Everyone who was about to take that step froze in place, like wooden figures, unable to move an inch. "What is this? Why is this happening?" Cries of terror and astonishment rose and fell, the Ice Tribe members all losing their composure and on the verge of collapse at this sight. The priestess stood frozen in shock, and suddenly she understood something. "Damn the god of light, I hate him." After a while, some people recovered, but when they tried again unwillingly, only to stop again, an atmosphere of despair filled the crowd. The priestess looked around at the despairing crowd and said in anger and shock, "They didn't leave us any chance at all, damn it." The Yanhuang tribe members who had rushed over from afar, seeing this ridiculous scene, all burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, as expected of a god, so that's how it is," someone suddenly realized, their hearts filled with admiration. With this restriction, these people not only couldn't resist, but they also couldn't escape in the future. They could only obediently listen to them. The god's methods were truly astonishing. No wonder the Holy Sun wasn't worried at all, the Yanhuang people sighed. Compared to their good mood, the Ice Tribe people were the opposite, becoming depressed and desperate. Having lost their last glimmer of hope, they felt a sense of lifelessness and self-abandonment. Sigh, the priestess sighed unwillingly and stopped her actions. Not long after, the Ice Tribe people were suppressed again, huddled together in the newly cleared space. "There shouldn't be anything else, finally we can get a good night's sleep," the Yanhuang man laughed. "Let's go to sleep." With that, a large group of people went to sleep with peace of mind, leaving the Ice Tribe people watching them from afar with hatred and despair. Time passed quickly, the cold night soon passed, and golden sunlight shone down from the horizon. The Ice Tribe people, stiff from the cold all night, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they were used to winter and could withstand the cold, so no one died. Suyun observed them from a distance, lost in thought. After a whole night, these people must be hungry, Suyun thought. The first step will be food. With that thought, he remotely activated the Ark of the Covenant. Waves of dazzling light flashed from the Ark, beautiful and magnificent. The Yanhuang tribesmen, who were working, watched the Ark of the Covenant with shining eyes. The Ark of the Covenant was performing a miracle. As they expected, the next moment, a sudden change occurred. White beads fell from the sky, looking beautiful under the golden sunlight. However, unlike last time, everyone was surprised to find that the white food only fell at the place where it was initially distributed. The remaining spoiled manna that had been pushed to the spot had already been destroyed by Suyun. Now that it had fallen there, the beads quickly piled up into a large mountain, and only then did the Ark of the Covenant stop. During this process, Suyun approached the old priest and spoke to him, instructing him to follow his instructions. Soon, after the Ice Tribe members regained consciousness, they noticed the pile of manna. Unlike yesterday, after confirming it was harmless and finding it quite tasty, their eyes lit up, and they were eager to get their hands on it. As a starving man walked towards it, the others crowded around and followed. The fierce-looking, burly leader addressed the 5 Yanhuang tribesmen guarding the food. "I've come to collect the food." "Wait," Feng said coldly, then turned to another guard and said, "Go and call the priest." The guard nodded and hurriedly ran to fetch the priest. The fierce-looking man and those who followed frowned upon seeing this. He said with disgust, "What are you doing? Don't you want to give us any food?" "HMPH, Feng snorted coldly, "if you want to eat, stop talking nonsense and just wait." "You?" The fierce and burly man was furious, but after thinking about what happened yesterday, he deflated and could only wait quietly. They didn't have to wait long. Soon, the old priest arrived with several people and guards. He glared at the fierce-looking man at the front, his old eyes narrowing, and chuckled, "Today is different from yesterday. You can have food, but you must do something." The Ice Tribe members were taken aback. The fierce-looking man frowned and asked, "What is it?" "It's very simple." The old priest smiled slightly and said loudly, "Repeat after me. Holy God of light, may your name be hallowed, may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread today. Cleanse us from our sins, forgive our transgressions, do not lead us into depravity, deliver us from evil. Glory to you, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end." The old priest spoke slowly and melodiously, his voice carrying a profound meaning, leaving those around him astonished. They couldn't help but ponder the meaning of the old priest's words. The more they thought about it, the more profound the words seemed, carrying a peculiar flavor. The priestess listened, her face showing shock. The priest of this small tribe actually said something like that. "Thank you, Jenny, for the 100 reading points reward." Chapter 260 Ideological Reform in Progress. Not to mention the others, even the Ice Tribe priest found the old man's words complex and shrouded in a peculiar aura. Her expression shifted between light and shadow. The old priest, looking at the bewildered crowd, couldn't help but feel a smug glint in his eyes. To be honest, when he first heard the Holy Son speak these words, he was also taken aback and secretly admired him. Now, seeing the crowd's reaction, he was filled with admiration. After they recovered, the old priest continued in a deep voice, "From now on, every time you receive food, everyone must recite what I just said, otherwise you won't be able to receive any food." "What?" The crowd was shocked. One Ice Tribe member asked in shame and indignation, Why did they have to say something when they were just receiving food? Wasn't this a waste of time, deliberately making things difficult for them?" The old priest smiled and said, "Our Yanhuang tribe will provide you with food. You just need to repeat what I just said every day. You can also refuse, but then you'll have to find your own food. This food isn't free. You should thank our God for creating and providing it. The food comes from the God. It's just a matter of saying some words of thanks." "What's so difficult about that?" After hearing the old priest's words, the Ice Tribe members looked somewhat grim, but they had to admit that what the Yanhuang priest said made some sense. Getting food by saying a few words was incredibly easy, but they really couldn't bring themselves to swallow their pride and say words of praise to the God of light. The old priest didn't urge them. He knew their situation. He wasn't worried at all. If they couldn't leave the tribe, he didn't believe they could hold on until they were weak from hunger. But just as he was preparing to wait, a weak, youthful voice rang out in the quiet crowd. A boy stammered, I'll read it. With that, he stepped out from the crowd and ran to the old priest. The Ice tribe members were startled, all turning their gazes towards him. Upon seeing a thin boy of about 13 or 14, they were puzzled. Who is this? I've never seen him before, most wondered, while a few recognized him, their expressions turning grim. It's him. I recognize this child. He's a slave in the tribe. Hearing slave, the real Ice tribe members' faces changed, feeling as if they'd swallowed a fly, their expressions extremely unpleasant. Previously, due to internal strife, some slaves had rebelled, resulting in the deaths of many tribesmen. However, those slaves weren't much better off. By the time the tribe realized what was happening, they had united to eliminate the rebellious slaves. As for the remaining law-abiding slaves, considering the tribe's changed circumstances, they hadn't been severely punished. However, they weren't exactly treated kindly. Seeing a slave step forward before them brought a slight sense of relief, but also a feeling of shame and disgust. Especially now that everyone was a slave of the Yanhuan tribe, their status was equal to that of the slaves, which only worsened their mood. The old priest, observing the anxious boy, had overheard their conversation, but he paid no attention. Instead, he said, "Repeat after me, Holy God of Light, may your name, give us our daily bread today. As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end." The old priest spoke slowly, and the boy cleverly repeated each line. When the boy finished stammering, the old priest smiled slightly. "Good, you can go and collect your food." Before the boy could rejoice, he continued, "From now on, you must memorize what I just said. You can use a little cleverness now, but not later." "Yes," the slave boy replied respectfully. Unlike the other Ice tribe members, the old priest of the Yanhuan tribe, who had defeated the Ice tribe, held him in high esteem and naturally listened to his words. The old priest waved his hand, urging the boy to take the food, while he continued to stand there, waiting for the next person to come up. After the first person took the plunge, several more burly slaves quickly followed suit. These slaves were clever and immediately imitated the boy's method, reciting the words after the old priest, line by line. Once they had all memorized them, the old priest said, "After you've received your food, stand aside and eat. You can continue listening to me, and try your best to memorize what I say." The slaves nodded hurriedly. After they received their food, things got much better. Batch after batch of slaves came up, and eventually, even members of the Ice tribe couldn't resist and awkwardly stepped forward to recite the prayer to receive their food. Several tens of minutes later, the old priest, his lips dry from talking, stopped. He handed the task over to the other tribesmen who had memorized the words, asking them to supervise these people, while he went back to rest. Seeing the first step completed from a distance, Su Yun felt much better and began to consider the next plan. After yesterday's despair, it's time to offer some sweet treats to comfort them. Su Yun was quite adept at this simple method of managing subordinates. However, before implementing it, he walked towards the old tortoise that was dozing beside the field of divinely bestowed plants. The old tortoise, huddled in its shell, immediately opened its eyes upon hearing footsteps. Seeing it was the Holy Sun, its eyes lit up. "Holy Sun, is something the matter?" Su Yun nodded and inquired. "Since the god has only recently awakened, there are some things he hasn't had time to tell me. I want to ask you a question. Do you know if there are ranks among believers?" The old tortoise pondered, having been completely fooled by Su Yun's elaborate lie and having no doubt whatsoever. "You're probably not talking about strength levels, but rather the degree of faith, right?" Su Yun nodded. "Let me think." The old tortoise recalled for a moment, then came to his senses. "I remember something. There's a hierarchy among believers based on their level of faith, but I'm not a god, so I only have a general understanding, and I don't know if it's accurate. Just listen. As far as I know, the levels of believers are shallow believer, true believer, devout believer, and fanatical believer," the old tortoise explained in detail. A shallow believer means that the other person's faith is shallow and they might waver and convert to another god. A true believer means that the other person truly believes in you and generally won't convert. Thanks to Demon King AC for the 200 Kidian coins reward. Chapter 261 Levels of Faith. A devout believer means the person is very devoted to you. Unless they encounter a very serious setback or change, they won't convert to another god. A fanatical believer. The old tortoise paused, his eyes slightly trembling. This level of believer is very rare. I haven't seen many myself. They're all crazy. Oh? Su-Yun asked curiously. The old tortoise sighed. A fanatical believer, in a sense, can be considered crazy. Their faith is extremely firm, and there's no possibility of them changing. They're even willing to do many irrational things for God. They uphold God's truth and are unafraid of hardship in spreading God's faith, even at the cost of their lives. Su-Yun nodded thoughtfully. In that case, they really were crazy in their faith. After talking about fanatical believers, the old tortoise said apologetically, I don't know if there are any more. I'm not a god, so I haven't looked into it, thank you. Su-Yun maintained his saintly demeanor and gave a gentle smile. No need to thank me, the old tortoise chuckled, then his eyes darted around as he said obsequiously, just give me a few of that stuff. He winked his dark eyes, giving him a knowing look. Su-Yun's lips twitched slightly, he really understood. Had he gotten addicted to manna? He said helplessly, when the holy food descends tomorrow morning, I will ask the gods to prepare some special ones for you. The old tortoise's eyes lit up after understanding. Having received the assurance, he didn't press the matter further, happily thinking how clever he was. Su-Yun walked away, pondering some things. The level of faith the old tortoise mentioned corresponded perfectly with his observation of the faith threads. Shallow believer equals shallow lines. True believer equals thick lines. Devout believer equals clear lines. Knowing the level of devotion, things will be easier from here on out. Thinking this, he walked up to the Ice Tribe members who were receiving and eating food. Facing the suspicious and worried crowd, he gave them a gentle smile, his handsome face conveying a sense of warmth and approachability. He said, People of the Ice Tribe, you don't want to continue like this, do you? Every day, besides eating, you spend the rest of your time laboring building wooden houses. Don't you want to change your current status? The wary crowd was immediately startled by his words. What does this holy sun mean? What kind of conspiracy is this? Suspicion and shock instantly arose in their hearts. They had learned that the person who had defeated them was called the Holy Sun in the tribe, and his status seemed to be even higher than the tribal chief and priests. For someone of such high status to suddenly say such things, if it wasn't a deliberate deception, then it truly meant something. But would this Holy Sun really be so kind as to free them from slavery? A middle-aged man couldn't help but ask, what are your demands? Su-Yun smiled slightly. God has mercy on you, is willing to cleanse your sins, forgive your past mistakes, and give you a chance for a new life. Those who believe in my God will receive different treatment according to their level of faith. The most superficial believers, the shallow believers, will be granted housing and the right to eat special holy food. The next level, the true believers, will be exempt from labor, allowed free entry and exit from the tribe, and will possess the identity of the Yanhuan tribe. As Su-Yun slowly spoke, the Ice Tribe members were somewhat stunned, their eyes filled with disbelief. The young man asked tremblingly, is what you're saying true? Su-Yun nodded. A series of heavy breaths rang out. The Ice Tribe members, who had been filled with despair and lifelessness after yesterday's events, suddenly regained some vitality in their eyes, a glimmer of hope appearing within them. They were fed up with their current lives, and the words of the Holy Sun gave them new hope. Most of them had already begun thinking about how to increase their faith and live a better life. Su-Yun saw their expressions and couldn't help but smile slightly. As long as they wanted a better life, they would definitely convert on their own. With the added incentives, he had already foreseen that before long, some of these people would become casual believers, or even true believers. As for devout believers, Su-Yun hadn't thought that far ahead. Even the old priest and the others were only devout believers. He hadn't considered that possibility at all. At this moment, Su-Yun suddenly noticed that some Ice Tribe members in the crowd, after hearing what he said, not only didn't seem happy but their faces turned gloomy and ugly. He casually glanced around and could roughly identify who they were. Besides the Ice Tribe priestess and the chief, there were more than 10 other people who stood out conspicuously among the other Ice Tribe members who had found hope. I didn't expect that the god of ice to have such loyal followers, Su-Yun thought to himself. He estimated that these dozen or so people were probably devout believers, the kind of converts who wouldn't easily betray their faith unless faced with a major upheaval, as the old tortoise had mentioned. As for the other Ice Tribe members, although they seemed hesitant, most had clearly been swayed by his words. Given enough time, As others enjoyed their privileges and became envious and competitive, they would naturally become devout. This group should be the less devout, perhaps mixed with some true believers. However, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even the true believers, Su-Yun was confident he could use modern methods to gradually correct them from their wrong paths. But those devout believers. Su-Yun glanced at the priestess and the others, his gaze turning slightly cold. The Ice Tribe priestess and leader, with their high level of faith and high positions, could easily affect the efficiency of their education and reformation. I just hope they don't make any mistakes, Su-Yun murmured to himself. He decided to ignore them for now. If they didn't dare, he would turn a blind eye. If they made a mistake, it would provide an excuse, allowing him to easily deal with them without upsetting others. Su-Yun thought to himself that he was truly a good god, giving everyone a chance. Actually, this was a death trap. Since they were all devout believers, how could they not do something? Sooner or later, they would all make mistakes. At this moment, a questioning voice rang out, "May I ask the Holy Son, what is that special sacred food?" Su-Yun looked closely and saw it was the slave boy who had been the first to step forward when the old priest spoke. He explained, "You have already tasted the sacred food, it's that white thing. I suppose it tasted quite good to you." The Ice Tribe members were somewhat embarrassed. They did indeed find the white thing quite delicious. Chapter 262 Su the Great Deceiver. Su-Yun continued, "If you really think that stuff tastes good, then you're wrong." He shook his head. "What you're eating now tastes very ordinary. You could say bland and tasteless, just average. The special holy food is different. It has many flavors, incomparable to what you're eating now. It can be considered a delicacy." Surprise appeared on everyone's faces. So what they were eating was just ordinary in the words of this holy son. How delicious must that special holy food be to deserve such a high praise from him? Thinking of this, longing appeared in their eyes. Everyone couldn't help but fantasize about becoming a follower, not only having a house to live in but also delicious food to eat. Such a good life. Comparing it to their current lives, a yearning look appeared in their eyes. The young slave who had inquired couldn't help but ask excitedly, "Then, Holy Son, how can one's faith reach the level you described?" Su-Yun pondered for a moment, then said gently, "You can offer some prayers every day, such as those words spoken by our tribe's priest. Recite them with a devout heart, and your faith will naturally increase gradually." The boy nodded earnestly. Although the others didn't say anything, they secretly remembered what the Holy Son said, preparing to try it when they returned. Su-Yun continued, "Once your faith increases, you will soon receive special treatment. Don't worry about being overlooked. Faith holds no secrets from my God." These seemingly superfluous words brought a sigh of relief to some of them. To be honest, they were also afraid that their faith would increase but they wouldn't receive the corresponding benefits. Now, with the Holy Son's guarantee, they felt much more at ease. After saying these words, Su-Yun didn't linger, leaving them time. After he left, the Ice Tribe members began to discuss among themselves, all talking about faith and status. "Whether it's fake or not, to change my identity, even if I'm deceived, I have to seize this opportunity," a middle-aged, dark-skinned, burly man said in a deep voice. "Me too," another man said. Someone next to him echoed, "And that special holy food." The priestess listened to the various words around her, her face so gloomy it was almost dripping water. She shouted angrily, "You bunch of traitors, the Yanhuang tribe gives you a little benefit, and you forget your hatred and your identity as members of the Ice Tribe?" The noise stopped, and everyone looked at the priestess. They fell silent, feeling a pang of guilt. But after the guilt subsided, their idea of converting, though wavering for a moment, still took root deep in their hearts. The words of that holy son were simply too tempting. They couldn't resist the lure of those benefits. They thought that as long as they didn't try it in public, they could try it in secret, and if they succeeded. The priestess didn't know what they were thinking. Seeing that they fell silent after she finished speaking, and their eyes showed guilt, she was immediately overjoyed. She felt that although these people were a bit foolish, they were still salvageable. With proper guidance, she could definitely correct their erroneous mindset and unite them against the Yanhuang tribe. Thinking this, she quickly pressed on. Su-Yun, watching from afar, keenly noticed the priestess's subtle movements and chuckled softly. He didn't stop her. Time would prove how easily her hatred crumbled under the weight of her ideological reforms. True believers and devout followers might have some resistance, but those with superficial faith wouldn't. Under the cultivation of the Ice God, the Ice Tribe, while possessing some devout and true believers, had suffered a defeat, with superficial believers making up the majority. Once these superficial believers wavered, the true believers would eventually follow suit. Unlike himself, the Yanhuan tribe, except for some very young children, were all at least true believers. This is only part of the measures, there are still others to be done. If the entire process is completed, the ideological reform will be even more thorough. Su Yun smiled slightly and began to consider the next step of his plan. In a flash, he went to see the old priest again and gave him some instructions. Soon, the legend of the heavenly realm spread among the Ice Tribe people. "Have you heard?" A middle-aged man with a thick beard named Li quietly pulled another middle-aged man aside. "What?" Qing Shu asked in confusion. "You haven't heard of it?" Li asked, looking surprised. Then, with a desire to share, he said, "It's the legend of the Heavenly Kingdom." King Shu, hearing Heavenly Kingdom, felt a vague sense of familiarity and stammered, "I feel like I've heard it somewhere before." Li's eyes gleamed with longing. "I heard that as long as you become a follower of the God of Light, your soul can be spared misfortune after death and resurrected in the Divine Kingdom. I heard it's full of all things beautiful, no sickness, no toil, no hunger, and many wonderful things." "What?" King Shu was stunned, a look of surprise flashing across his face. "Is it true?" "It should be true." Li hesitated for a moment, then, as if remembering something, said, "I've tested it several times. Everyone in the Yanhuan tribe knows about this place and firmly believes in its existence. It can't be false." This, King Shu's expression became dazed. The beautiful world after death made him a little dizzy, but he thought of a crucial point. He breathed heavily and said, "You mean, as long as you become a follower of the God of Light, you can be reborn after death?" Li nodded seriously. King Shu gasped, stunned. He thought, whether it's true or not, I must become a follower of the God of Light. If he had hesitated before about the benefits, now the Heavenly Kingdom was the final straw, and the scales in his heart began to tip towards becoming a believer. This scene wasn't limited to this corner. Everyone in the Ice Tribe, from the elderly to the young children, had heard of the legend of heaven. The legend sparked a heated discussion among them. Everyone feared and fantasized about the afterlife, and now there was a concrete description of this afterlife. A magnificent heavenly kingdom, filled with all things beautiful, appeared in their minds. As the discussion progressed, it became clearer and more alluring. Just as Su Yun had predicted, heaven, this bargaining chip, became the final straw that broke the camel's back. Their hearts were completely shaken. Even some of the more intelligent and rational ones, those with deep faith in the God of Ice, who initially wanted to disbelieve, were unconsciously swayed by the excited words of the crowd. What if it's true? This is much better than believing in the God of Ice. You get to live again after death, and once you become a true believer, there's a promise to become a member of the Yanhuan tribe. They've even heard of miracles of resurrection in the Yanhuan tribe, which is incredibly astonishing. This seems to indirectly confirm the existence of the heavenly kingdom. Otherwise, how could the dead be resurrected? All of this makes them think, maybe we should try believing, requesting recommendation votes and monthly tickets. Mwacap 3 Cap. Chapter 263 The Ashen-Faced Priestess. The priestess, realizing her guidance hadn't worked and before she could even figure out why, was dealt another heavy blow by the heaven phenomenon. The tribe's people's unusual behavior couldn't be hidden from her. Initially, she hadn't paid much attention to the legends of heaven spread by the Yanhuan tribe's people, even scoffing at their fabricated stories. Now, she regretted it. Who could have imagined that a mere legend would cause such a huge reaction, making the Ice Tribe people look at her strangely, their eyes filled with longing? By the time she realized what was happening and tried to stop it, it was too late. The legend of heaven had already spread far and wide, almost everyone had heard of it. How could she stop it now? However, clinging to a sliver of hope, she still tried, wanting to expose the Yanhuan tribe's conspiracy. The next day, after receiving the holy food, while the tribe's people were gathered together, she loudly proclaimed, "Don't believe in this so-called heaven. It's a conspiracy by the Yanhuan tribe. Such a place doesn't exist." The heated discussion subsided, and everyone looked at the priestess with complex expressions, their eyes filled with shame and evasion. The lack of response from her tribesmen chilled the priestess's heart, and she felt increasingly disheartened by the methods of the Yanhuan tribe. She herself hadn't understood those methods at first. Now, facing the strange expressions of her tribesmen, she knew perfectly well what effect the Yanhuan tribe's repeated tactics had had. Just as she was filled with alarm, a young, Burly man among the devout believers of the ice tribe loudly echoed, "I think the priestess is right. Don't you think that kind of heavenly kingdom could possibly be real?" He sneered repeatedly. "In my opinion, just as the priestess said, this is all a deception by the Yanhuan tribe. Don't believe it. You is right, it's a scam," another devout believer shouted. Soon, one devout believer after another stepped forward, all testifying for the priestess. The priestess looked pleased and satisfied. However, when she looked closely at the others, her face turned as dark as a shadow. She noticed that although the expressions on the faces of her people wavered slightly, they didn't fully believe what they were saying, making the persuasion ineffective. She couldn't help but join in the persuasion. After a while, no matter what they were about to say, except for a small minority, the hearts of most people were beyond redemption. Looking at the expressions on those faces, their own faces turned ashen. The priestess said hatefully, "What a god of light! What a Yanhuan tribe! I never expected them to have such methods. Good, very good indeed." Her head was buzzing, her blood rushed to her head, her face flushed red, and she was almost bursting with anger. "I will not admit defeat." No matter how cunning and treacherous the Yanhuan tribe was, she had to bring them back to their senses before they succumbed. Thinking this, the priestess began her persuasion again. In the distance, Su Yun watched the scene without joy or sorrow. Seeing the priestess and the others still struggling desperately, he couldn't help but shake his head. How could a primitive man possibly defeat him, who possessed modern wisdom? He observed the priestess's actions with a spectator's mentality, not intervening, treating it as a bit of entertainment in life. Once the first believer appears, there's no stopping them. He shook his head. Time flew by, and 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. For these 2 days, the Ice Tribe members had to recite the prayers spoken by the old priest every morning before they could receive their holy food. After eating, they were driven to build wooden huts, and exhausted after a long day, they would fall asleep. At night, the cold wind would occasionally wake them, making their sleep extremely poor, leaving them both mentally and physically exhausted. It was only because it hadn't rained these past few days that their situation was worse. Living such a grueling life every day, they would surely become numb if nothing unexpected happened. But ever since the Holy Sun said that becoming a minor believer would bring good food and wooden huts to keep them from freezing, their hearts stirred. Compared to their hard life, they longed for a better life and secretly hoped to become believers to escape their current suffering. And so, on this morning, as usual, they recited the prayers before the Yanhuan tribe. Su Yun gazed at the dense crowd, a slight smile playing on his lips. Finally, the first believer has appeared. The pace was slow, but understandable. The first to try something new is always cautious. Su Yun carefully sensed the crowd, his gaze then falling on a familiar boy. Upon recognizing him, he was slightly surprised. It's that slave boy. After his initial surprise, seeing the slave boy go to collect food, Su Yun stepped forward and stopped him. The boy looked at the Holy Sun before him with some confusion. Su Yun spoke slowly, his voice resounding in everyone's ears. "Congratulations, you have become the first believer." "What?" The boy was stunned, as were the others, staring in astonishment at the slave boy. "After you finish eating, someone will take you to the newly built wooden house to stay in." Su Yun smiled slightly. He then left without saying more, leaving a large group of people discussing excitedly, their envious and jealous glances frequently landing on the boy. "This kid became a believer, and he actually has a wooden house to live in," a man murmured incredulously. "It's actually true." Before the stunned crowd could recover, an even more astonishing situation occurred. White holy food began to fall from the sky again. However, this time the area was smaller, confined to in front of the boy. This was specially controlled by Su Yun, who even changed the manna flavor to sweet biscuits. Upon closer inspection, the crowd noticed that the white holy food looked different from theirs. Although still white, its surface was covered with patterns, making it look much more exquisite. In the blink of an eye, the exquisite holy food was piled up to a single serving, and the Ark of the Covenant stopped operating. Among the stunned crowd, someone reacted and exclaimed, "This is special holy food." As soon as the words left their mouths, curious and fiery gazes were fixed on that small pile of holy food. The Yanhuan clansman guarding the holy food, hearing the crowd's exclamations, came to his senses. He looked at the boy and his expression softened a little. "That pile of special holy food is yours. You can take it." The slave boy's heart was racing. Under the intense gazes of many, his face flushed, He quickly stepped forward and put the holy food on the ground into the animal skin. Without a word, he clutched the animal hide tightly and ran away. Unfortunately, his attempt to escape failed. A large crowd followed him curiously, wanting to see what this special sacred food tasted like. Chapter 264 The Ice Tribe People's Changing Mindset. Gray, his face contorted in pain, stared at the crowd following behind him. "Stop running. Quickly, try it and see what it tastes like," a fellow slave shouted urgently. Gray stopped, panting slightly. The crowd immediately swarmed around him, squeezing him in the middle, urging, "Try it, Gray, I'm your friend. Give me one to try." A burly boy named Yuan, about 15 or 16 years old, pleaded pitifully. Gray said urgently, "I haven't even tried it yet, how can I give it to you? I'll try it first." Under the watchful eyes of many, he took one out of the animal hide and put it in his mouth. He had barely chewed it when a rich, sweet flavor assaulted his taste buds, leaving him stunned. Unable to resist, he reached out again, grabbed another, and tasted it. Listening to the boy's chewing sounds, the onlookers, seeing the enjoyment on his face, discerned something. "Is it really that delicious?" they thought in surprise. The boy's eager actions made them itch with envy as well. Yuan rushed forward and grabbed his shoulder. "Give me one, just one." Gray was interrupted, looked at Yuan and then at the sacred food, a reluctant expression on his face. He hadn't had enough. Seeing this, Yuan, with a dejected, honest and simple face, said, "You get to eat it every day, just give me one, okay?" Gray was persuaded and reluctantly gave him one. As soon as Yuan got it, he eagerly stuffed it into his mouth. After chewing a few times, his eyes widened. "What is this taste? I've never eaten anything so delicious." After finishing this one, Yuan looked at the other sacred foods in Gray's animal skin, subconsciously swallowing, his mouth watering. The many onlookers, hearing his praise, all swallowed hard. Those who had eaten both of them had expressions of shock. The unique taste of the sacred food was clearly undeniable. The Holy Child hadn't lied to them, it really was delicious. They couldn't help but think that this young man had such food every day and lived in a wooden hut, and feelings of envy and jealousy welled up uncontrollably in their hearts. Some even thought that the young man only possessed these benefits because he had become a believer. Believers. Suddenly, a scruffy, burly man shouted jealously, "I want to become a believer too, me too." As if a switch had been flipped, a chorus of agreement rang out, everyone filled with anticipation of becoming a believer. The priestess and others mixed in with the crowd, upon hearing these words, felt their hearts sink completely, utterly chilled. Is this the method of the Yanhuan tribe? The priestess was filled with resentment, but at the same time, she subconsciously felt a sense of fear at the changes her tribesmen had undergone. Extremely unwilling, she gritted her teeth and tried to say something persuasive. "This is a conspiracy, you." However, this time the effect was even more disheartening than before. Although the tribesmen behaved well this time, she still saw some impatience on their faces, as if they no longer wanted to hear what she had to say. She stopped talking, silently cursing these traitors, her hatred for the Yanhuan tribe that had caused all this intensifying. Her initial fighting spirit, then a glimmer of hope, had turned to utter despair. It was all the fault of the damned Yanhuan tribe. Knowing it was futile, she stopped trying to persuade them, leaving angrily to find others to help her devise a solution. After the priestess left, the others recovered. Their eyes fixed on the sacred food in Gray's hands, their gazes bright and eager. With so many people, there were bound to be some irritable and violent individuals, and this was no exception. "Hey kid, share some of the food with me," a burly, fierce-looking middle-aged man said greedily. No, Gray's face changed, and he refused outright. However, his refusal only enraged the burly man, making him feel humiliated in front of so many people. Without a word, he lunged forward, grabbing at the animal hide in the boy's hand. A series of gasps rang out. In the struggle, a loud crash echoed as the special sacred food spilled all over the ground. The crowd fell silent for a moment, then, someone seemed to lead the way, and everyone frantically began picking it up. "Grab it!" With a loud bang, the sacred food vanished in the blink of an eye. "My food! You!" Gray couldn't stop them, his eyes instantly reddened, and he angrily pointed at the burly man. The burly man trembled, he knew things were going badly, but the mistake he had made was impossible to make him apologize to the child. He forced himself to remain calm and shouted, "Who told you not to give it to me? If you had given it to me willingly, This wouldn't have happened, Gray was furious, pointing angrily at him. If it weren't for the size difference, and knowing he couldn't possibly win, he would have already fought the burly man to the death. His sacred food. He hadn't had enough. Gray's heart was bleeding. At that moment, gasps of surprise came from the side. It's so delicious, compared to this, ours is inedible, those who picked up the sacred food exclaimed in surprise after tasting it, their expressions astonished. Gray's face darkened, and he glared angrily at them. The burly man was filled with regret. He should have known better than to stand still and pick up the sacred food directly. Judging from their expressions, the sacred food was extraordinary. Most of those who hadn't tried it before, seeing these exaggerated expressions, had a consensus: this sacred food was definitely a delicacy. Regretful expressions appeared on their faces as they lamented their slowness. Not long after this incident, the Yanhoang tribesmen guarding the tribe noticed them. 5 burly men ran over. A deep shout rang out, "What are you doing?" As they approached, Gray's eyes lit up, and he quickly went to the leader to complain. While speaking, he angrily pointed at the burly man who had made the mistake, making the man tremble. Soon, the Yanhoang tribesmen guarding the area understood the gist of the matter. "You've stolen someone else's food. You don't get any rest today. Get back to building the house," the captain said grimly. "Take him away." The other men beside him immediately grabbed the burly man. The man instinctively tried to struggle, but realizing he couldn't attack a Yanhoang tribesman, he slunk back, regret creeping onto his face. If he'd known this would happen, he wouldn't have stolen it. The captain said sternly, "This punishment is lenient. If he does it again, the punishment will be severe." He looked around, clearly warning the others. After a while, seeing no one object, the captain was somewhat satisfied. Then, he pointed at the boy. "Our priest said that all believers have a higher status than you. You mustn't offend him in the future." Becoming a believer meant a higher status. Everyone's mouths dropped open, their eyes wide. "Thank you for the 300 Kidian coins reward. Thank you Jenny for the 100 reading points." Chapter 265 The Ice Tribe People Who Changed Their Beliefs. Such a thing was true. They were all slaves, yet becoming believers granted them a higher status. Envy and jealousy welled up uncontrollably in their hearts. Especially the thought of becoming a believer and receiving delicious food. All these benefits fueled their desire to become believers. If they became believers, they would have houses and delicious food. Compared to their current lives, wouldn't that be a better life? The patrolling Yanhoang tribesmen, after issuing another warning, left with their men, leaving behind a large group of people with mixed feelings, looking at the slave boy, Gray, with strange eyes. Gray was startled and just wanted to escape. Just then, a tall, burly Yanhoang tribesman approached. He said loudly, "I'll take you to the newly built wooden houses. You can choose one yourself." "Okay." Gray was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly without hesitation. Then, under everyone's gaze, they watched as the boy chose a house they had recently built and moved in. This scene left them with mixed feelings. The wooden houses they built, once you became a believer, you could really live in them. After the crowd dispersed, everyone felt a growing anxiety. The atmosphere among them changed instantly. Especially after frequently seeing the slave boy go out and receive special food, a fire burned within them. If everyone were equally unlucky, it wouldn't be so bad, but when one person in the crowd gets special treatment and frequently appears before them, it's a different story. Intense resentment and envy arose repeatedly. Under these circumstances, faith grew rapidly at an astonishing pace. Time passed, and the next day arrived quickly. To everyone's surprise, 9 new believers appeared. "Looks like we need to keep trying. I'm not reconciled. How could I not be included? Damn it." Looking at the 9 overjoyed figures ahead, various unpleasant emotions arose in the hearts of the others. With these emotions, and amidst the daily toil, another 7 days passed. The changes that occurred in these 7 days surprised not only the Ice Tribe members but even the old priest and others. In just 7 days, over 200 new novice believers were born. From the moment the first believer was born, the number of believers grew at an increasingly rapid pace. Meanwhile, a strange phenomenon emerged among the crowd. A newly minted novice believer walked past 2 ordinary Ice Tribe members, his face filled with arrogance as he completely ignored them. Watching him walk away, the 2 ordinary people gritted their teeth. "What's so smug about? One day we'll become believers too, huh?" This was commonplace in the tribe. Most believers, upon encountering ordinary Ice Tribe members, would display arrogance, looking down on them and taking pride in their current status as novice believers. This situation fueled the resentment of ordinary people, accelerating the emergence of new believers. The Ice Tribe's priestess, before she could devise a solution, was overwhelmed by the surge in numbers. Her expression shifted from a hint of despair to numbness. She could no longer suppress her emotions. Suyun pondered. He estimated the Ice Tribe's population to be around 1,600, and the 200 or so casual believers weren't a small number within that base. It's time to move on to the next step. We can release the creation legend along with it, Suyun deciding to speed things up. After thinking it through, he went to the priest and gave the instructions. Soon, the next morning, when the crowd gathered to collect food, the old priest began to speak. Ice Tribe members, in recent days, many of you have become believers in the gods. I think it won't be long before true believers emerge among you, and that person's identity will change, from slaves to members of our Yanhuan tribe, he shouted, his voice echoing throughout the open space. The Ice Tribe members began to murmur amongst themselves. Change their identity, become a member of the Yanhuan tribe? Most ordinary people had mixed feelings, unsure whether to love or hate. As for the 200 or so casual believers, their feelings were much more direct. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation, looking forward to the day they would have the identity of a Yanhuan person. After the old priest had seen enough, he continued loudly, you all should be familiar with the legends of heaven, also known as the kingdom of gods, the heavenly kingdom, or the heaven above heaven. Now I'm going to tell you another, even more wondrous legend, an even more wondrous legend. The 1,000+ people all looked on in astonishment. The legend of heaven had already broadened their horizons and left them in awe. And now there was another legend? What was it? While they were curious, the faces of the priestesses and others in the crowd turned ashen. What is this old man up to now? The priestess's face was so dark it could drip water. The previous legend of heaven had caught her off guard, putting her in a precarious situation. Now, her eyes were filled with rage, as if they were about to burst forth. If looks could kill, the old priestess would probably be dead many times over. Unfortunately, even if she wanted to stop him, she couldn't. At this moment, the old priest continued loudly, today I'm going to tell you the legend of creation. Creation. The Ice Tribe members looked puzzled. The Yanhuan tribe members watching, however, had their eyes light up, revealing expressions of pride. The old priest coughed a few times, interrupting the noisy crowd, and began his slow narration. Legend has it that the world was created by light. Before the world was formed, there was nothing. Darkness shrouded everything. The simple words about light successfully piqued everyone's interest. One day, light appeared in the darkness. Light is an unimaginable God. He is omniscient and omnipotent, capable of doing everything people can imagine. Is there such a great God? Most people were filled with doubt and disbelief. HMPH, talking about impossible things again. The priestess's eyes lit up as she listened to her people's skepticism. She felt a little smug, thinking that the old man was going to miscalculate this time. Although her people were a bit foolish, they weren't that stupid as to believe such exaggerated things. The young leader of the Ice Tribe beside her also showed a hint of disdain. Ignoring the crowd's doubts, the old priest continued. He wandered around in that chaos for a while, and one day he suddenly felt bored and felt that something was missing from the chaos. It was at that moment that he conceived the idea of creating the world. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 266 The Collapsed Priestess. On the first day, he felt the chaos was too dark, so he uttered a single word, light. Chaos was filled with light, and the darkness of chaos finally welcomed the light. Later, light and darkness mixed together, so light separated them, calling the time of light day and the time of darkness night. From then on, the world had day and night. Listening to the old, powerful voice slowly recounting this, although most of the crowd was filled with doubt and disbelief, they still felt a sudden sense of understanding. So that's how day and night came about? Their attention unconsciously began to focus, not wanting to miss a single word. The priestess and the others frowned slightly, sensing something amiss. On the second day, Light used his omnipotent power to first create the land, then the water, then he created the air, calling the empty space the sky. On the third day, Light separated the water and the land, calling the dry land continents and the gathered water oceans. On the fourth day, light created the stars. On the fifth day, as the old priestess explained, the crowd was completely absorbed, utterly engrossed in the story. From initial disbelief, they were gradually drawn in. Their initial skepticism was slowly swayed by the rich narrative, and a thought began to form in their minds. So this is how the world was created. A series of magnificent scenes unfolded in their minds, becoming increasingly clear with the old priest's words. On the sixth day, light created man. Hearing about the creation of man, they were startled again, filled with disbelief. Did man really appear like that? On the seventh day, heaven and earth and all things were created, and light completed the creation. The old priest's story, though not as ornate or elaborate as Su Yun's own, still had a powerful impact on these primitive people who hadn't heard much before. As the old priest finished recounting the 7 days of creation, everyone looked on with unfinished business. Then, predictably, someone asked, "Priest, what happened to the light in the end?" The old priest chuckled, "I haven't finished yet." Everyone's eyes lit up, and they quickly pretended to listen attentively. The old priest continued, "After the light created the world, it was exhausted." As he explained, they became saddened upon hearing that the light had dissipated. A somber atmosphere enveloped the crowd. Then, upon hearing that the light was not dead, but merely asleep, they wept with joy. The crowd cheered. The clamor awakened the priestess. She looked at her excitedly discussing tribespeople, her previous relaxed demeanor completely forgotten. The Ice tribe chief's disdainful face froze. The other devout believers had similar expressions. Just now, they had actually been drawn into the story of creation. How terrifying. They had even begun to believe, and if it weren't for their unwavering faith in the God, they might have already succumbed. This method terrified them. Just then, someone asked when the light would awaken. Seeing this, the old priest revealed the light's current identity. The God of light. The light's first reaction was disbelief. The priestess's eyes lit up, as if she had found an opportunity. She disregarded everything else and immediately shouted at the top of her lungs, "Did you see that? This old man is lying to everyone. Don't believe him." The priestess's words caused the many Ice tribe members to become suspicious and uncertain. Noticing their change, the priestess was filled with excitement and turned to look at the old priest with a cold smile. It seemed as if she was saying, "See, no matter how cunning you are, I found a flaw." However, when the crowd began to question, the priestess didn't see any surprise on the old man's face, which surprised her. The old priest grinned, not panicking. After the crowd calmed down, he calmly explained the reasons for the dispersion of the light's power. In an instant, the initially suspicious crowd became uncertain again. The priestess's smile froze. When the old priest presented his final trump card, the simplest evidence that the Holy Sun had mentioned for identifying light, it was clear that the Yanhuan tribe, with only a few hundred people, possessed a light god whose strength was comparable to that of a great tribal deity. Even those great tribal deities dared not underestimate him. Moreover, the god's power would only grow stronger, requiring no followers to rapidly increase its strength. The Yanhuan tribe members wore expressions of pride, while the Ice tribe members were in an uproar. They were initially shocked, then, recalling that the god of ice had died at the hands of the god of light, they realized something was amiss. They couldn't believe that a tribe of a few hundred could defeat their 2,000-strong tribe's god. Now, hearing the old priest's words, they understood. So that's where the problem lies. The god of light is light itself. No wonder our god lost, they sighed, convinced their god's defeat was justified. Being unable to defeat light was normal. The two were simply incomparable. Even the last vestige of resentment in their hearts vanished when they thought of the god of ice dying at the hands of the great creator god, light. Now, they completely believed the old priest's utter nonsense. Perhaps becoming followers of the great light was a good choice. This thought uncontrollably surfaced in their minds. Hearing the piercing words around her ears, the priestess's smile froze completely. She trembled, murmuring incoherently, "Impossible, this isn't real, it can't be real, how could this be?" Her body suddenly went limp, collapsing to the ground amidst the gasps of those around her. A sense of bewilderment and numbness filled her, the surrounding sound seemed to fade into the distance. "It's over," the Ice tribe chief, seeing this, rushed to help her up in a panic. "Damn old man," he gritted his teeth, glaring hatefully at the old man. Cough cough cough, the old priest coughed a few times, silencing the crowd. He shouted, "The great God created the world, we need to revere him and love him. He directly quoted the words occasionally uttered by the Holy Son, "We are all lost sheep, constantly needing God's guidance. Everyone, pray with me, beseech the God in his kingdom to have mercy and bless us." He fervently cried out, "Our God in heaven, may your name be hallowed, may your kingdom come." As the old priest's resonant words rang out, the surrounding people unconsciously joined in the chanting. The voices overlapped, creating a breathtaking scene. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Cleanse us from our sins and forgive our transgressions. Do not lead us into delusion, but deliver us from evil. Glory to you, as it was in the beginning, is now, and everlasting. Thank you for the 400 Kidian coins donation. Thank you for the 100 book coins donation. Chapter 267 Trick. As the prayers raged, the thousands, enveloped in this fervent atmosphere, experienced a fleeting illusion of having come to believe in a God of light. Suyun observed from afar, and noticing that as the prayers drew to a close, dozens more believers had suddenly appeared, a look of satisfaction spreading across his face. The effect is not bad. Every morning, I can gather everyone together for a prayer. Psychologically speaking, people have a herd mentality. If they repeatedly chant along with everyone else, even the unbelievers will eventually be influenced and their thoughts distorted, unknowingly becoming devout. Suyun sometimes felt that he was truly wicked, with a whole repertoire of twisted thoughts. Soon, he assigned a daily prayer task to the old priest. He was absolutely certain that with time, the number of believers would increase. In a secluded corner, the Ice Tribe chief and a dozen others, along with a priestess, hid in a remote place. "What do we do now?" a middle-aged man asked anxiously. The Ice Tribe chief sighed. "I can't think of any other way. That old man is really ruthless this time. Look at those people, they're not someone we can persuade." He hesitated, not finishing his sentence. However, the others, as if by unspoken agreement, understood his meaning. The priestess asked absently, "Don't you think the legend that old man told you sounds like it's true?" The Ice Tribe chief hesitated and agreed, and the others nodded reluctantly. "Even you have this thought? Is there any hope for those tribes people?" the priestess said bitterly. Not to mention the others, even she herself, after hearing the whole story, was starting to believe it. Especially the part about the power of the God of Light, which not only terrified her but also made her completely doubtful, unsure of the story's truth. Even she, a staunch believer, was having this change of heart. She really didn't think much of the other tribes people, who were probably already almost completely succumbed. "What do we do?" they cried out in panic. The priestess smiled bitterly. "That God of Light's methods are extremely strange. We can neither escape nor resist. Now we can only wait." As she spoke, a thought suddenly flashed into her mind. "We can't go out, but others can come in. The Yanhuang tribe dared to reveal such a big secret in public. They're truly foolish. As long as we find an opportunity to leak the God of Light's secret, those large tribes," she sneered repeatedly. "As long as it's leaked, whether they believe it or not, those large tribes will definitely send people to investigate. When they find something, the Yanhuang tribe will still have the chance to survive." "Priestess, this method is excellent." Everyone's expressions brightened, and a fierce glint appeared in their eyes. They seemed to already be able to imagine the Yanhuang tribe being wiped out by those stronger tribes in the future. The Ice Tribe leader thought of something. "It's just that this will take a long time. I don't know when we'll be able to wait for someone." Sigh. "As long as the Yanhuang tribe can be destroyed, even if it wastes some time, it's worth it," the priestess said. "But you're right, we can use this time to do something." She coldly revealed another plan, which caught the attention of those who overheard it. While these people were excitedly discussing their plan, they were unaware that someone had overheard everything they said. Suyun had noticed them long ago and was now secretly listening to their plan, his lips twitching. The first plan was nothing special, though it was indeed a flaw. However, Suyun wasn't that stupid as to let these people without faith threads come into contact with outsiders. The priestess's plan had almost no chance of success. Even if word got out, with his increasingly rapid increase in strength, he might not be afraid of those gods. Moreover, he had considered various possibilities before even starting the deception, and was naturally mentally prepared. As for the other plan the priestess mentioned, these people were actually discussing secretly giving the powder from a white stone to those traitorous clansmen, causing them to feel unwell. Then they would secretly spread rumors that those who believed in the God of Light would encounter misfortune. As long as those people panicked, the rate at which believers were born would naturally slow down uncontrollably. Unable to harm the Yanhuan people, they turned to harm their own. Su Yun stroked his chin. They're quite clever. Unfortunately, they seem to have forgotten one thing. Even if he hadn't overheard the plan, they were the only ones in the tribe with a motive to do all this. He didn't know if they had overlooked this, or if it was a last-ditch effort out of desperation. I was thinking about how to find a perfect excuse to get rid of these rotten apples, but they've delivered themselves to my doorstep. Su Yun shook his head. Did these people think that by not attacking them, they had forgotten about them? After a moment's thought, he immediately devised a solution. Time passed quickly. Under his inaction, the priestess and her group's plan proceeded smoothly. After some effort, they secretly added poison powder to the trader's water. When those people drank the water, they naturally felt unwell due to the poison, groaning and screaming. At first, no one paid attention, assuming it was just an upset stomach. But as more and more people became unwell, the others realized something was wrong. But from some unknown point, rumors began to circulate within the tribe that traders who betrayed the god of ice and converted to the god of light would meet with misfortune, causing widespread panic among the ice tribe members and even shaking their faith. In a corner, the ice tribe chief exclaimed excitedly, "It's a success!" Admiring gazes fell upon the composed priestess. The tribe's people's stares nearly made her lose her composure. Her heart was filled with smugness. HMPH, that damned Yanhuan tribe, one day I'll witness your annihilation, she thought maliciously, then quickly reminded them, be careful now, space out the poisoning for a while, to avoid any accidents. The priestess is so thoughtful. Admiring praise rang out. With the priestess's reminder, they became much more cautious for several days, refraining from action until the effects of the rumors would dissipate. Only then did they have no choice but to continue their attack. In the morning, dark clouds hung heavy in the sky, and a cold wind blew intermittently, making the weather look ominously gloomy, suggesting a downpour was imminent. This bad weather naturally caused great anxiety among the homeless ice tribe members, and coupled with the events of the past few days, their spirits were already low. Thankfully, it seemed the rain wouldn't fall before they finished collecting their food, otherwise, they wouldn't know what to do. While everyone anxiously collected their food, in a corner, a group of people who had already planned their operation exchanged glances and then quietly began their plan. Chapter 268 A Mocked Holy Son. Hurry up while those traitors are out of the house, an elderly man said in a deep voice. Yes, the 7 or 8 men beside him nodded. After observing their surroundings and making sure no one else was around, they each went to the wooden hut where the traitors were staying. With a creak, the wooden door was pushed open. Cha quickly went in and closed the door, glanced around the room, and then saw a ceramic jar filled with water in a corner. Traitors, huh? Cha sneered, skillfully taking out some white powder from his person, and was about to sprinkle it into the jar. However, before he could sprinkle the powder, an unexpected situation occurred. Bang! With a loud crash, the tightly closed wooden door was pushed open. Cha was startled. He was already doing something despicable, and the sudden sound of the door opening almost scared him out of his wits. His mind raced, and a fierce glint suddenly appeared in his eyes, but when he turned his head and saw who was outside the door, he froze. There was more than one person at the door. Several people were blocking it, staring at him with expressions of shock and anger. Oh no, a sense of terror washed over him. Take him away, the leader of the Yanhuan tribesmen shouted coldly. Several men beside him immediately pounced, firmly restraining the struggling Cha. After Cha, his face ashen, was dragged out of the house, he knew his fate was probably grim. Moreover, the many of his fellow tribesmen watching from afar confirmed that this was no accident. Soon after, as he was being held captive and joined by a group of familiar faces, his heart sank completely. The old priest, looking at the 9 people being brought in, pointed at them sternly. Did you all see that? This is what your people did, poisoning. They poisoned your water, making you drink it and then spread rumors based on your illness. A roar erupted from the dark mass of the ice tribe people. Already whispering and pointing at the people with suspicious expressions, they were now completely enraged. Muzi, why did you do this? A middle-aged man shouted hoarsely, pointing at one of them. Have you forgotten how I treated you when you were a child? Have you forgotten we're all from the same tribe? Another person cried out angrily. You people, are you just jealous of others' success? Questions echoed from the crowd. The young man named Muzi, his face flushed with embarrassment, instinctively tried to defend himself. Don't believe them. We didn't do anything. These people arrested us to frame us, The crowd fell silent. His words only fueled their anger. There are so many of us, some of us saw you being taken out of the house with our own eyes. Are we really accusing you? Muzu was startled, realizing she had spoken rashly and regretting her earlier words. Now, even if they wanted to argue, they couldn't explain why they were being taken to their house. The old priest, seeing that things had gone far enough, suddenly waved his hand. Shitao and the others stepped forward and searched the 9 people, finding some items on them. They showed the white powder to the Ice Tribe people, and their expressions changed instantly. It's poison stone powder, they recognized it. In their original tribe, poison stones were often used to repel insects. They never expected to find it on these people. The clever ones quickly recalled the effects of poison stones on the ingested people. Comparing it to the symptoms of the previous sick people, they immediately realized that the poison was administered by their own tribe. It really was you. Any lingering hesitation vanished completely, and they glared at them with fiery eyes. Muzi and the other 9 people turned ashen-faced and completely gave up struggling. Seeing this, the old priest smiled with satisfaction. However, one step remained unfinished. The primary target assigned by the Holy Sun wasn't them. He suddenly roared, "Speak! Who ordered you to do this, you?" They were startled, and when they realized what he was asking, they panicked uncontrollably. After a moment, Muzi said firmly, "No one ordered us. We were just jealous of them. Why do they live in such nice houses while we don't?" The other 8 people quickly realized what he meant and shouted urgently, "Yes, that's right, we're just jealous of them." The priestess and the leader in the crowd showed relief on their faces and breathed a sigh of relief. The Ice Tribe people, who were unaware of what was going on, suddenly understood and thought that was the real reason. The old priestess wasn't fooled by them and suddenly shouted, "You're lying. Your priests ordered you to do it, didn't they? How could you?" Muzi and the others were startled and instinctively wanted to say something, but thankfully they reacted in time and didn't reveal anything. The priestess and the others felt a tightness in their hearts. "How could you say that?" Muzi said quickly. However, no matter how well they concealed it, the others still sensed something was amiss from their previous expressions. The old priest frowned, somewhat regretfully, and hissed, "You'd better tell the truth, or don't blame me for taking action." "Go ahead." Muzi and the others hesitated for a moment, then gritted their teeth, choosing not to expose the priestess. They considered themselves incredibly devout and would never betray her. The old priest said, "You'd better think it over. If you tell, you might receive a lighter punishment. If you don't, you'll be treated as traitors to the tribe and thrown out to be eaten by wild beasts." Hearing this consequence, Muzi and the others trembled, torn between death and confession. The priestess and the others, hiding in the crowd, saw their expressions and their hearts skipped a beat. They couldn't help but silently pray. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Muzi suddenly shouted, glaring angrily at the old priest. "No one ordered us to do this. We're just jealous of those people. To try and kill us like this? I think your Yanhuang tribe did it on purpose." Upon hearing this, the Ice Tribe members realized it was indeed unreasonable. Could it really be targeting them? A few who were more steadfast in their faith in the god of ice showed anger in their eyes, while the others had complex expressions. "Muzi is so clever," the priestess was delighted, then sneered, "Old man, let's see what you do this time, trying to resolve this so easily? You're dreaming." She had to admit that she hadn't reacted quickly enough. The Yanhuang tribe was as cunning as ever, and they had almost been caught off guard. Fortunately, Muzi was quick-witted at the crucial moment. The priestess and the leader looked smugly at the old man. After this, they would definitely be more careful and make the Yanhuang tribe pay. They thought bitterly. The old priestess shook her head, her eyes filled with regret, which made Muzi and the other 9 feel strange. Seeing this from afar, Su Yun shook his head. They really won't shed tears until they see the coffin. After only a moment's thought, he came up with several solutions. The first, the hard approach, was torture. So many cruel tortures in modern history, just using someone as a warning wouldn't deter these people, as they were fanatical believers. Not everyone who witnessed it would be able to withstand it. The second, the soft approach, was threats. Some of these people had attachments, threatening them with their families, followed by promises of benefits. A combination of soft and hard tactics might not be worse than torture. But these are all methods used by mortals. Su Yun shook his head. He disdained such low-level, despicable methods. Thus, only one method remained. Su Yun suddenly stepped forward and slowly walked over. The murmuring crowd fell silent, staring at him in surprise. It's the Holy Sun. What was the Holy Sun doing here? Among the Ice Tribe members, except for a very small minority, those who had interacted with this gentle Holy Sun over this period had to admit that he was a very easy person to get along with. What's this guy doing here? The priestess's face darkened. The hatred in her heart for the culprit who had caused the Ice Tribe's downfall was even greater than her hatred for that old man in the distance. As the Holy Sun approached, driven by the resentment of her failed plan and her intense hatred, she couldn't help but speak sarcastically. Holy Sun, have you come to see how your priests wrong innocent people? The scene fell silent. Suyun maintained his persona, showing no anger at the mockery, but instead said gently, God will not wrong any innocent person. As long as they are innocent, they will be released. That expression again. The priestess looked at this face that seemed never to get angry. All was kind and gentle, and the more it was like this, the angrier she became, wishing she could tear the Holy Sun's face apart. She scoffed. Oh, so your priestess said she'd throw them to the wild beasts. Is this what you mean by not wronging any innocent person? They were just jealous of those people. Why did they suffer such a fate? From now on, will every member of our Ice Tribe suffer the same result if they make even the smallest mistake? As she spoke, her eyes reddened, her body swayed, and her face was filled with grief and indignation, as if she were standing up for her fellow tribesmen. Her words caused a commotion among the crowd. Suyun didn't want to get entangled with this woman any longer. I'm here to determine whether they are guilty or not. With that, he ignored the priestess and walked straight to the 9 people. Muzi and the others stared wide-eyed at the Holy Sun before them, their hearts pounding with anxiety, wondering what he was going to do. The Holy Sun slowly spoke, declaring, under the watchful eye of God, you must not lie. Tell me, why did you do this? Who instructed you? Hearing the questions, Muzi and the others wondered what the Holy Sun was up to, their eyes filled with disdain. How could they possibly be foolish enough to reveal their reasons? The priestess and the others found it amusing, thinking the Holy Sun was out of his mind. They scoffed inwardly at Muzi and the others for revealing their true intentions. However, while they were secretly mocking him, 2 rules were unknowingly established. Thank you Jenny for the 100 reading points reward. Thank you for the 100 Kidian coins reward. Chapter 269 Muzi speaks the truth. You can't hide your true thoughts. You can't refuse to answer questions. These 2 rules, unnoticed by anyone else, instantly enveloped the entire tribe. As Suyun finished speaking, just as the 9 members of the Mu family showed disdain and the priestess and others looked at him with mockery, a bizarre scene unfolded. The 9 people, speaking at varying speeds, all spoke at once. We poisoned them to stop those traitors from continuing to worship the evil god of light. That's right, those traitors are truly stupid. They panicked so easily after being misled by us. They're incredibly foolish. They spoke their true feelings without pause. The 9 members of the Mu family stared blankly, their mouths moving uncontrollably, spewing out one sarcastic and smug remark after another. Their words and expressions formed a stark contrast. The previously noisy crowd fell completely silent as the Mu family spoke. The priestess and the chief were stunned, their minds blank, unable to recover for a long time. Until Muzi and his 9 companions finally spoke their last words. Their faces were filled with terror, their mouths opening and closing. The priest told us to do it. The priestess was shocked. She screamed, Muzi, shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? But no matter how panicked she was, the words Muzi and his 9 companions had already spoken couldn't be taken back. Everyone had heard them clearly. For a moment, the Yanhuan people looked at the priestess and her group with disgust, while the Ice Tribe people had complex expressions. Those repeated words of traitor and fool filled them with embarrassment, anger, and a chill. They also realized that in the eyes of the priestess and her group, they were already traitors and fools. At this moment, after speaking, Muzi and his 9 companions finally regained their freedom. What did you do? Muzi and his companions exclaimed in horror. Suyun said softly, under the gaze of the gods, no one can lie, the god of light. Everyone was stunned, their faces filled with disbelief. Some of the more astute and imaginative people immediately began to marvel at the power of the god of light. Impossible, the priestess could hardly believe such an ability existed. Seeing the effect, the old priestess pressed her advantage. Besides you, how many others were involved? What other plans do you have? Muzi and the other 9 were stunned, their faces filled with terror, but their voices still rang out. Priestess, chief, Queen, shut up. The priestess instinctively tried to step forward to stop them. Unfortunately, the other Yanhuang people blocked her way, giving her no chance to approach Muzi and the others. Thus, under the priestess's torment, almost all the devout believers and a few true followers of the ice tribe revealed their true identities. However, if it were only these things, the priestess and the others might still have a glimmer of hope. But with Muzi and the others revealing the priestess's plan to leak information to other tribes, leading to the extermination of the Yanhuang tribe, there was no reason for them to remain naive. The priestess and the young chief, among others, turned ashen-faced, utterly terrified. The next second, a deafening roar erupted as the crowd burst into chaos. Everyone stared at them in disbelief, unable to comprehend that anyone would devise such a vicious plan. If it succeeded, the thought sent a chill down their spines. "What a wicked woman," a member of the Yanhuang tribe said with disgust. "Why did the priestess do this? Why?" some members of the ice tribe asked. Seeing that all was lost and her people were questioning her, the priestess knew the Yanhuang tribe wouldn't let her go this time, and she gave up her last desperate struggle. "Why?" she sneered, glancing around at them. "You traitors, the Yanhuang tribe gives you a little benefit, and you forget your place. I want the Yanhuang tribe destroyed, to be buried with the ice tribe and the gods. They'll ruin everything." Hearing this, the ice tribe members' eyes were filled with complex emotions, unsure whether to love or blame her. The old priest, unable to contain himself any longer, rebuked, "What do you mean by this? Wasn't it your ice tribe that initiated the invasion of our Yanhuang tribe? Your god has fallen. Without a god, you cannot survive. We kindly sheltered you and didn't retaliate. Killing some of you is already an act of kindness." The ice tribe members fell silent upon hearing this. They thought of the evil creature that had attacked their tribe earlier. If it hadn't reached the Yanhuang tribe, many more of their people would likely have perished. Thinking of this, they felt an uncontrollable sense of relief. At the same time, they knew that the fate of a defeated tribe was usually grim. They could be indiscriminately slaughtered if they were in a bad mood. Now, recalling the Yanhuang tribe's gentle approach, their emotions were complex. The old priest angrily uttered a few words of explanation before turning to the priestess and the others. "What you have done will be treated as treason." His old face was cold and hard, showing no mercy. The others were startled, remembering the priest's words about feeding the wild beast, and all shuddered. With a wave of his hand, the old priest summoned a large group of men who surged towards them. The shouts and struggles raged for a moment, then subsided. They were all pinned down, unable to move an inch. "No, your Yanhuang tribe deserves to die, deserves to die," the priestess screamed. The old priest roared, "Break their arms and legs. Treat them as traitors." Soon, screams of agony rang out as the priestess and others had their arms and legs forcibly broken, struggling and groaning in pain, covered in cold sweat. Seeing the priestess and others suffering, the ice tribe members felt a pang of pity and couldn't help but plead, "Yanhuang priest, can you spare them?" The old priest turned and glanced at them, then shook his head, saying, "You will forgive those who betray the tribe?" These words left them utterly speechless. The old priest, gradually regaining his sense of duty, noticed the emotions of the ice tribe people. He suddenly said with pity, "God is full of mercy and willing to forgive everyone's mistakes, even theirs," he added, pointing abruptly at the priestess. Just as everyone was bewildered, the old priest said to the priestess, "You don't think God doesn't know about your little tricks, do you?" The priestess, her face contorted in pain, suddenly perked up and snapped, "What do you mean? God sees everything you do, yet he hasn't stopped you." The old priest shook his head. "Don't you understand? Thanks to 202011272227000397 feet for the 500 Kidian coins reward." Chapter 270 The Fate of the Priestess and Others. The old priest slowly began, "God was willing to give you one chance, ignoring your actions, as long as you didn't engage in those underhanded tactics. Unfortunately, you did wrong, wasting God's good intentions." He didn't say this aloud, but the others understood. The old priest continued, "Just now, when I interrogated you, it was God giving you your last chance, but unfortunately, you chose the wrong path again." Hearing this, the priestess and the others widened their eyes. The other ice tribe members also gaped, unable to believe it. God was so merciful, yet the thought of the priestess and the others betraying God's good intentions, making two wrong choices in a row, filled them with complex emotions. Some wanted to sigh. If this was true, the priestess and the others had really courted death. They couldn't even utter their pleas. The change in everyone's expressions made Su-yoon, who had quietly left, look strange. The priestess, unwilling to believe it, screamed in shame and anger, "I absolutely refuse to believe it." The old priest shook his head and waved his hand. Seeing this, the tribesmen immediately took the priestess and the others away for punishment. This time, no one could plead for them. "Spare us. No, I don't want to die," panic-stricken words came from their mouths. But no matter how much they struggled, they were forcibly taken away. In the distance, the crowd could still faintly hear the priestess's unwilling roar, "I'm not reconciled. I want your Yanhuang tribe to be buried with me, buried with me." Her voice was filled with madness. As the priestess and a dozen others were taken away, the Ice tribe members could already imagine their fate, but apart from sighing, they did nothing. The mistakes the priestess and the others had made left them with no place to plead for mercy. Watching Su-yoon in the distance, he muttered to himself, "The cancer in the tribe has finally been cleared away. There will be no more obstacles from now on." Perhaps there were still one or two devout believers left in the crowd, but whether they were doing it for their families or something else, as long as they remained obedient like this in the future, he would turn a blind eye. Right, there's that thing too. Su-yoon suddenly thought of something and took something out of his body. It was an irregularly shaped, transparent object, resembling both crystal and ice, appearing clear and transparent. However, it was dull and lifeless, as if covered in a layer of dust. This was something obtained from the Ice tribe during the extermination of them. It was said to be their sacred object, similar to a divine stone. Unfortunately, it's damaged. Su-yoon shook his head. He tried channeling divine power into it, but to no avail. However, in a flash of inspiration, when he transferred his faith power to it, he discovered that it had been slightly repaired. Su-yoon secretly estimated that to repair it, he would need to supply it with his daily faith power and spend half a month. Once repaired, it should be an ice attribute divine artifact, but the repair time is a bit long. Su-yoon thought for a moment and then put it away. He didn't need it for the time being, so he decided to store it away and take it out when he needed it later. Besides, the repair would be faster once his strength increased. After resolving the issue of this divine artifact called ice crystal, Su-yoon suddenly looked up at the sky. A dark, oppressive mass loomed overhead, inexplicably instilling immense pressure and prompting onlookers to marvel at the power of nature. The light was obscured by the clouds, leaving a dim, gloomy scene. The approaching winter weather brought a chilling howling wind that sent shivers down one's spine. Su-yoon was intimately familiar with this situation, having experienced it countless times in the real world. "Looks like a downpour is coming," he murmured. And judging by the situation, it would be a very heavy downpour. As he pondered this, his keen hearing caught the worried voices of some Ice tribe people in the distance. Among them, a kind-looking young man with brown skin, dressed in animal skins, gazed at the sky with a distressed expression. "Alice, it's going to rain heavily. What are we going to do?" Hearing his sigh, a thin, 5 or 6-year-old boy beside him shrank back in fear. "Father, I'm afraid of the rain. I don't want to get wet." He clutched the large man's rough hand, his face on the verge of tears. The kind-hearted man shook his head. "What can we do? We can't stop the rain from falling." He patted the child's head, saying with pity, "It's all my fault for not letting you have a house." The child clung tightly to the man's hand, asking fearfully and innocently, "Is there really no way? We can pray to the gods. The gods can surely stop the rain." In his young mind, he couldn't distinguish between gods. He only knew that gods were incredibly powerful, a profound idea ingrained in him from childhood. So, he asked this question. Hearing this, the other men nearby, whose faces had been worried, changed, their expressions softening, some even bursting into laughter. "Ha ha ha," the kind-hearted man chuckled, "Ha ha, what do you know, kid? It's just raining. How can we stop it? Even the gods can't stop it," the child asked doubtfully. The honest-looking man hesitated for a moment, then vaguely replied, "It should be possible." He actually wanted to say how impossible it was, but he didn't want to discourage the child or criticize the god, so he didn't say it aloud. Not only him, but the other dozens of men around him also shook their heads, some finding the child's naive words amusing. Natural disasters weren't so easily solved, at least from their perspective in the Ice tribe. The god of ice couldn't accomplish such a thing. The child didn't understand his father's underlying meaning, only believing that the god could really do it, and his eyes lit up. He clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and prayed in a daze. "God," his clear voice startled the burly men around him, who looked at the child with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. They thought the child was truly adorable. How could a god appear for such a trivial matter? Not far away, Su-Yun seemed lost in thought, somewhat speechless. He looked up at the dark clouds overhead. Speaking of which, I haven't really made a move since advancing, and I don't know if my current power is what I expected. He couldn't help but have the idea to test it out. The child's words not far away also gave him a target. Why not test it out with a dark cloud overhead? The thought was irresistible. The next second, a black vortex appeared within the divine stone space, and the divine body vanished. Meanwhile, within Su-Yun's physical body outside, a seemingly illusory black vortex appeared, and the divine body emerged from it, merging with his physical body in the blink of an eye. Feeling the immense power at that moment, Su-Yun's lips curled into a smile. Over there, among the dozens of people, a rather mischievous man stepped forward and patted the child's head, interrupting his prayers. Looking at the puzzled child, he teased, "You little brat, you really know how to think. How could a dark cloud disappear?" He was about to say something, but the scene not far away made him stop in his tracks. A group of people turned around in astonishment, only to see a flash of white light in the distance. The holy sun was radiating light, and then, in the next moment, he floated into the air. The dozens of people who called him the Holy Sun, as well as those around who witnessed this scene, were all astonished. Chapter 271. A shocking move. Before they could think further, the Holy Sun's figure blurred and vanished from their sight. Where did the Holy Sun go? They cried in astonishment. Su-Yun flew into the air at incredible speed, the howling wind automatically blocked by the white light surrounding him. After reaching an altitude of about 2,000 meters, Su-Yun stopped. He was now very close to the dark clouds. Boom! 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 A series of thunderclaps exploded, accompanied by flashes of lightning, creating a terrifying spectacle. Humans seemed even smaller in the face of such nature. Crack! Just then, a white light flashed, striking Su-Yun with terrifying speed. Su-Yun glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, then ignored it. The lightning struck him instantly, and bolts of electricity rippled and shimmered around him, incredibly frightening. However, even this terrifying lightning felt to Su-Yun like a gentle breeze. He wasn't harmed in the slightest. The lightning that raged across him couldn't penetrate the white light at all, it was blocked directly outside. Ignoring the lightning, Su-Yun turned his attention to the dark clouds. The next moment, he made his move, and a dense white light erupted from his right hand. The white light grew brighter and brighter. Boom! A beam of light, roughly several thousand meters in diameter, shot straight into the sky. The dark clouds were pierced in the blink of an eye, the beam of light easily scattering them. Then, a shocking scene appeared. A hole appeared in the middle of the dark clouds, and white sunlight streamed down. Then, the pierced dark clouds, like toppled dominoes, underwent violent changes. A violent roar resounded, and strong wind pressure surged outwards from the hole several thousand meters in diameter. Su-Yun's eyes narrowed slightly. The dispersed dark clouds, carried by the gale, quickly scattered away from the area. He admired the sunlight that had returned, a slight smile playing on his lips. While he was admiring the scenery, the crowd below was in an uproar. Panic gripped the tribe after the Holy Sun vanished, and the news spread rapidly throughout the entire tribe. In a short time, thousands had gathered at the spot where he had disappeared. The old priest and others were also extremely anxious. However, before they could act, a deafening roar from the sky diverted their attention. Everyone instinctively looked up, and their mouths gaped open. A massive beam of light pierced through the dark clouds, scattering a large portion of them, making it incredibly conspicuous. Exclamations of surprise escaped their lips. Then, before their eyes, the clouds, pierced through, began to rapidly disperse in all directions. The tribe stared in disbelief, completely bewildered. As they watched, a violent gust of wind suddenly swept in from overhead. "Help!" the crowd screamed, desperately covering their faces to shield themselves from the wind, which tossed them about, making them unsteady on their feet. Not to mention them, even the trees and other things in the forest were being forced to rustle by the gale. The range and impact of the wind were beyond imagination. Once the group had adjusted, they were astonished to see that the dark clouds in the sky had almost completely disappeared with the wind. Golden sunlight streamed down from above, bringing warmth. The old priest and the others stared blankly at the sky, utterly shocked by the disappearance of the dark clouds. Such power! A series of swallowing sounds accompanied the terror on their faces. Even dark clouds could be dispersed, What was that pillar of light? If it was an enemy attacking the tribe again? They all shuddered, fear creeping into their hearts. Just as they were filled with fear, a clear child's voice rang out. The dark clouds have truly disappeared. God heard my prayers. In the quiet crowd, the child's voice was exceptionally clear, heard distinctly by everyone around. What? The old priest, who had been staring blankly at the sky, and the other terrified tribesmen all turned to look in the direction from which the voice came. The honest-looking man was startled, trembling with fear under the many gazes. He instinctively reached out and hugged the child tightly. What happened? What did you mean just now? The old priest rushed over, asking urgently. The child, never having seen anything like this before, was immediately terrified and huddled in the man's arms, too afraid to look up. This, the honest-looking man stammered, too nervous to speak. Fortunately, the man who had witnessed what had just happened quickly recounted the events in detail. Listening to the conversation, the child prayed to the gods to dispel the dark clouds. The holy sun suddenly disappeared, and then the scene just now unfolded. The child's words and the holy sun's disappearance quickly connected in their minds. This was done by the holy sun, the old priest exclaimed in astonishment. The others were also filled with disbelief and deep emotion. They had always held a clear understanding that the holy sun was incredibly powerful, otherwise, he couldn't have single-handedly dealt with the ice tribe. Now, they found it even more terrifying. They couldn't believe that a natural disaster like rain could be dispelled by humans. At this moment, a man in the crowd muttered to himself, "Did you notice? That huge pillar of light looks a lot like our power of light." Everyone was startled, and after thinking carefully, they realized it was indeed true. Another sound of swallowing saliva rang out. With this evidence, they had no choice but to believe that the miracle that had occurred earlier must have been performed by the Holy Sun. The Holy Sun is so powerful. The dozens of men who had been watching the child pray were filled with astonishment. Just now, they seemed to have thought that the God of Light couldn't dispel the dark clouds. They suddenly felt fear. If the Holy Sun has such strength, then what about the God of Light? A man from the Ice tribe muttered. The people around him were shocked. Yes, even the Holy Sun had such strength, so what about the even stronger God of Light? For the first time, everyone realized that the power of the gods had never been seen by them before, always so unfathomable. While they were in shock, the old tortoise outside the crowd looked up at the sky, its black eyes wide open. Hey, no way, the old tortoise's eyes widened. This is something a human could do. I must be seeing things, otherwise how could I have such an illusion? Look at that enormous pillar of light, comparable to a celestial phenomenon. Could a human possibly emit such a beam? Sensing the terrifying aura emanating from the sky, and imagining the massive pillar of light piercing down, he shuddered in fear. Just the intensity of the aura he sensed was at least equivalent to a fourth-level god. Hiss, where did this freak come from? While they were in shock, Suyun, high in the sky, was deep in thought. He was also somewhat surprised by his own power. Such a wide-range attack, without personally experiencing it, was truly more real than imagined. My attacks now have a slight world-destroying effect, right? Suyun muttered to himself. This was only a fourth-level god. If he reached a fifth level, wouldn't he be comparable to a human-shaped self-propelled nuclear bomb? He could sweep the ground with a nuclear bomb with a flick of his wrist, and the intensity would be even more terrifying. As he thought about it, Suyun suddenly wondered, what about the even higher levels of power? My strength then, I can't think about that anymore. I should focus on improving my strength. Suyun quickly interrupted his wild thoughts, nipping the arrogance that had just sprouted in his mind in the bud. He even mocked himself. My current strength is just like this. There are definitely gods stronger than me. I can't be arrogant. Thinking this, he became even more determined to become stronger and not relax. While he was mocking himself, he didn't know that the impact of his attack was far greater than he imagined, extending beyond the Yanhuan tribe. From this point, beings emanating various auras suddenly opened their eyes, looking in astonishment in his direction, requesting recommendation votes and monthly votes. I've almost reached 10,000 recommendation votes on Kidian. Everyone please give it your all. Cap 3 Cap I'm not being a slacker today, right? Chapter 272 The Impact. This is such a powerful aura. Who is that? That direction. Everyone relatively close to Suyun's location keenly noticed the powerful aura that erupted from the horizon in that instant. Even from a great distance, they sensed the enormous attack range. When did such a powerful being appear in that direction? They thought with suspicion and apprehension, deciding that it would be best to stay away from that direction in the future, lest the other party, in a fit of displeasure, slap them to death. Some of those with better connections knew that the area was the territory of the Yanhuan tribe. Some gods or mythical beasts speculated. If I remember correctly, that god of light was a level 3 god. When did he acquire such power? It shouldn't be him. That aura was so terrifying. He must be at least a level 4 god. But after a short while, some clever individuals rejected this answer, secretly laughing at themselves for overthinking it. A level 3 god couldn't possibly unleash such power. And for a level 3 god to advance to a level 4 god, the time required would be extremely long. How could the other party possibly advance to a level 4 god in such a short time? That's ridiculous. Unaware of the impact and chaos he had caused, Suyun, having finished testing the effects, flew towards the tribe. During the journey, his divine body within his physical form disappeared along with the black vortex, returning to the divine stone space. Come to think of it, after advancing, the little black sphere had gained another coordinate, which was quite convenient. After Suyun landed above the tribe, he found a large group of people huddled together, looking up at the sky. Seeing him descend, they exclaimed with delight, "It's the Holy Sun. He's back." Suyun looked at them with a puzzled expression, wondering why they were so excited. Once he had completely landed, the old priest and his men immediately surrounded him, bombarding him with questions. The old priest asked, "Holy Sun, that miracle just now, did you perform it?" His face showed reverence. Scanning the awe-inspiring gazes, Suyun nodded slightly. "It really is the Holy Sun." After receiving another wave of shocked expressions, Suyun quickly waved them away, lest he lose his composure if he looked any longer. He also found an opportunity to leave. Unfortunately, even after he left, the crowd still gathered in small groups, enthusiastically discussing the Holy Sun's power and fantasizing about the power of the God of Light. Time passed quickly, and another half-month went by. During this time, Suyun was practicing his control over his divine power and observing the situation in the tribe. With a priestess no longer an obstacle, the harvest of believers was progressing well, and the number had now reached more than 900, almost half of the original population of the Ice tribe. Everyone wanted to avoid hardship, so the number of casual believers naturally increased exponentially and rapidly. In addition, with such a large base of casual believers, true believers were naturally born, and there were quite a few, several dozen. These people were not only relieved of their daily forced construction work, but were also given the official status of Yanhuan tribe members, thus completely breaking away from the Ice tribe. Whenever they saw these people freely entering and leaving the tribe without having to work, not only the ordinary slave tribesmen but also the casual believers were green with envy. Driven by layers of self-interest and a sense of envy and comparison, the rate at which true believers are born is incredibly fast, with new believers emerging every day. At this rate, the vast majority should be converted to believers before the tribal exchange competition, relieving Suyun of much worry. Besides this, the plants in the divinely bestowed plant field are growing well, but apart from the bok choy, which has matured, the others are still far from ripening. This morning, the old priest received a message from the Holy Sun saying that one of the divinely bestowed plants had matured, and he was overjoyed. "Be careful," the old priest reminded the two female tribeswomen picking bok choy. "Priest, we'll be careful, don't worry," a woman in her 20s said with a smile. As the two bent down to pick, 10 of the seemingly few dozen bok choy plants were harvested, leaving the rest. Those were specifically kept by Suyun for seed. To be honest, before he personally investigated, he hadn't known that bok choy could flower. In the real world, he only saw leaves, so he thought that's what bok choy looked like. He used to wonder where the seeds came from, but now he suddenly understood. At a certain time, the bok choy would sprout yellow flowers, somewhat like rapeseed flowers. The seeds, of course, were obtained by drying the bok choy after it had flowered and fruited. The two women picked just enough bok choy for one meal, placed it on a clean porcelain plate, and handed it to the old priest before withdrawing. "What should we do with this?" The old priest looked at the pale green, translucent bok choy, which seemed like a precious treasure, and felt a headache coming on. After hesitating for a moment, he gave up the idea of bothering the Holy Sun. After a while, he found the chief and Mao, and the three men experimented around a clay pot. Finally, Suyun couldn't stand it anymore and went over to stop them from wasting the divinely bestowed plant. He personally took charge, frying a piece of fatty meat in the pot to render some oil, and then poured all the bok choy into it. As the sizzling sound continued, the bok choy began to soften. After adding a little water and salt, a dish that looked and smelled delicious was ready. The white porcelain plate held the vibrant greens, still beautiful even after being stir-fried, with white steam rising from them. "So fragrant," the leader exclaimed, sniffing the air. Perhaps due to the divine gift of this plant, the bok choy's aroma was incredibly enticing. Suyun, who hadn't eaten anything and wasn't hungry, picked up a bok choy leaf with his chopsticks and tasted it. His eyes lit up slightly upon tasting it. It was crisp and refreshing, with a unique flavor of greens, but far superior to modern bok choy, and even had a hint of sweetness. Suyun estimated that even someone who disliked greens and couldn't live without meat would find themselves unable to resist taking another bite. Most importantly, he carefully assessed the effects. He noticed that shortly after eating it, his body felt warm, and his physique seemed to have improved slightly, though the effect wasn't very noticeable to him. Opening his eyes, Suyun saw the two people looking expectant and chuckled as he offered them some of the food. The two eagerly tasted some, their eyes lighting up simultaneously. "This is even better than meat." The leader grinned. The old priest nodded in agreement, thanks to Jenny for the 100 view reward. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 273 Heavy Snowfall. "How is the effect?" Suyun asked, offering a reminder. The two immediately checked their bodies. They found their bodies brimming with energy, seemingly inexhaustible, and their minds incredibly clear. "I feel like I could fight beasts without relying on the power of light," the leader exclaimed eagerly. The old priest, meanwhile, walked around, feeling as if his aged body had been infused with vitality, making him appear younger. Suyun listened to their feedback, lost in thought. It seems the effect of the white cabbage is to restore energy and fatigue, and also to enhance physical constitution, although the effect isn't immediately obvious. If we eat this over time, the improvement, Suyun imagined how strong everyone's physical condition would become if they ate it every day, given the short cycle of its effects. After understanding the white cabbage's effects, he gave instructions to the old priest and the leader. Each of the divine warriors should take 1 or 2 white cabbages back to cultivate in small pots or plant them near their homes. Whenever a divine warrior is born, they can receive some white cabbages. After a few polite refusals, the two finally agreed with delight. Having dismissed them, Suyun sat alone cross-legged on a tall, flat rock, quietly contemplating. Just then, something tiny fell from the sky and landed on him. "What is this?" Suyun looked up at the sky. He saw that small white specks had begun to fall. He reached out and caught one. It was icy cold. "It's snowing." More and more snowflakes fell from the sky, swirling and fluttering down. This sight startled Suyun. With the development of modern society, snowflakes were rarely seen in cities anymore, making this a rather unusual sight. "Looks like winter has arrived. No wonder the weather has gotten so cold so quickly these past few days," Suyun mused to himself. "I wonder what winter is like here in this other world." He remembered he had wanted to teach his tribe about fire pits, but now it was too late. The people in the tribe also noticed the snowflakes falling from above. The old priest sighed worriedly. "I hope no one freezes to death this time." Alice, he recalled how, in previous years, the tribe would huddle together in caves for warmth at this time of year to combat the cold. Even so, some would inevitably die each time. It was simply too cold. Thinking of this, the old priest suddenly smiled, but this time, with a fire bestowed by the gods, not too many tribesmen should die. And there's food. He remembered that last time it snowed, the tribe not only had to contend with the cold, but the most fatal problem was the food shortage. Whenever that happened, some of the elders would sneak out to reduce the burden on the tribe, and as for their fate. "Alice," the old priest sighed sadly, then said devoutly, "this time, we don't have to worry about food, thank the gods." After the gods bestowed the method of preserving food with salt, they had already stored a large amount of meat for the winter, which should be enough to survive this time. Having considered all this, he felt relieved. In any case, this time wouldn't be worse than last time. The old priest was relieved, but some members of the ice tribe were filled with panic. Especially the ordinary people, who still didn't have houses to live in. Now that the snow was falling, they still had a chance to survive. What should we do? I don't want to die, what? Those with weaker mental fortitude were almost on the verge of collapse, crouching down and weeping. But there wasn't much time left for them to cry. The snow had already started falling, and crying was useless. Just as they were covered in snowflakes, their faces filled with despair, a message arrived. Everyone wept with joy. The Holy Sun declared that God had taken pity on them and allowed them to stay in caves or other people's wooden huts. This news alone made them tremble with excitement. Thank God. Thank the Holy Sun. Everyone expressed their heartfelt gratitude at this moment. Suyun was surprised to find that the number of believers had suddenly increased by nearly 200. Indeed, the time between life and death is when one can gain faith the most. He shook his head and sighed slightly. As the arrangements continued, some people moved into caves, while others stayed in the homes of people they knew. This crisis was considered over. By this time, a thin layer of snow had already fallen, and the snowflakes were becoming increasingly dense, causing the temperature to plummet. Suyun looked at the empty open space and shook his head. He was the only one standing there, everyone else was huddled in their own houses. He wasn't standing there to suffer, of course, he simply found himself completely oblivious to the cold, as if winter had never arrived. It's getting more and more inhuman, he mused, before heading towards his wooden hut. As the Holy Sun, he had been allocated a wooden hut, and due to his status, it occupied a central location in the tribe, its size and perfection meticulously crafted by the tribe's people. Time passed quickly, and another half-month went by. The weather worsened. Suyun estimated the temperature to be at least below -10 degrees Celsius. The outside was covered in thick snow, and not a single living creature could be seen. Bored, he released his spiritual power, scanning the entire tribe. Every single detail surfaced in his mind, crystal clear. Won't those little cabbages and such die? A quick glance revealed that the large divine trees in the field of divinely bestowed plants were unaffected, appearing vibrant and thriving, clearly unaffected by the low temperature. However, the smaller cabbages and other plants were wilting, looking as if they were about to die. Suyun estimated that if it weren't for the plant's tenacious vitality and the old priest and others' diligent daily maintenance and clearing of snow, they would have perished long ago. After surveying the field, he turned his attention to the believers. Inside a wooden house, two people were huddled on the wooden bed. "Father, it's so cold," a familiar little boy, his face flushed, sniffed, leaning against his father's chest, desperately seeking warmth. The kind-hearted man comforted him. "If you're cold, sleep a little. Father's here." The child weakly responded, closing his eyes against the broad, sturdy embrace. The kind-hearted man tightened his hold. What was initially a normal scene became apparent when Suyun frowned, sensing the child's life force waning. The simple-minded father probably hadn't even noticed the child's health was failing. Suyun glanced past this detail, then realized it was just a microcosm. The tribe's situation was dire. Chapter 274 Transformation into the Sun. Although there was fire, the firewood was insufficient to keep it burning constantly, so the situation for each believer was precarious. He even discovered several people who had frozen to death. "It's so cold, will I die? God, please save us," weak murmurs echoed. The old priest opened the wooden hut door, looked up at the still snowing sky, and murmured worriedly, "It's not even the coldest time yet, how can it be so cold?" Suyun frowned. It wasn't even the coldest period yet, and it was already this cold. If it got any colder, what would become of them? Suyun secretly regretted not mentioning the method of keeping warm beforehand, and he hadn't expected the winter here to be so harsh. He quickly thought of a solution. After a few minutes, a solution came to him. Back in modern times, didn't I dream of becoming the sun? Why not give it a try? Suyun thought with interest. Being the sun, that was quite an experience. Perhaps he could try it now, which would also make it easier to play the role of the sun god later. With that thought, he immediately put his plan into action. Inside the divine stone space, Suyun looked at his divine body and adjusted the light around him. The white light began to change, gradually tinged with a faint golden glow. In the blink of an eye, the originally dense white light completely transformed into golden light. The warm golden light radiated out, exuding the familiar characteristics of sunlight, illuminating the divine stone space as if it were a golden expanse. After transforming into sunlight, Suyun released the restrictions of the divine stone, allowing the light to shine outwards. The divine stone was placed on a tall altar, surrounded by snow. A dazzling golden light flashed, and the white divine stone appeared as if it were cast from gold. The surrounding snow melted away, and then the golden light spread outwards in the blink of an eye. Soon, the entire tribe was enveloped in golden light. The warm sunlight caused the frigid air to begin to warm up. People who were huddled in their houses, shivering or praying for divine protection, saw golden light shining in from the cracks in their houses. Everyone felt that this scene was somewhat familiar, a feeling of something long forgotten. Suddenly, they remembered the brilliant sunshine before the snowfall. It was so similar. But how could this be? They only paused for a moment, then shook their heads with a sneer, lamenting that they were overthinking things. The snow was still falling outside. How could there be such a bright sun? But perhaps it was just their imagination. They found that it didn't seem so cold anymore. Driven by curiosity about the golden light, they struggled to their feet and headed outside. As soon as they opened the door, a long-awaited ray of sunshine bathed them, making them involuntarily tremble. "It's sunshine," they exclaimed incredulously, overturning their previous thought. This familiar feeling was too similar. Eagerly searching for the source of the light, they were astonished to see that it was emanating from the center of the tribe. Everyone rushed towards the direction of the light. When they finally saw the dazzling object, their mouths gaped open. Staring at the blinding golden light, they noticed that it was emanating from the altar. Examining the luminous yet blurry object closely, they exclaimed, "It's the divine stone." As they cried out, a strange thing happened. The golden divine stone began to slowly rise into the air. By the time they realized what was happening, the divine stone was already high in the sky and continuing to ascend, its coverage expanding with the sunlight. Looking down, the surrounding light seemed like a miniature sun. Staring dumbfounded at this miniature sun, they felt their minds were overwhelmed. Suyun had only flown a short distance when he realized that the light he automatically emitted was insufficient, unable to reach as many areas as needed. Left with no other option, he increased the range of his radiance. Not long after, he noticed something. He discovered that when the light remained within a few thousand meters, the consumption of divine power was minimal, and the transmitted faith power could easily balance the consumption with a considerable surplus. However, once outside this range, the consumption of divine power increased dramatically, quickly becoming insufficient. After some thought, he decided to limit the range to a few thousand meters. He controlled the divine stone, and after flying to an altitude of over 1,000 meters, he stopped flying and fixed it in place. Sunlight streamed down, bathing the earth, and the people below stared in disbelief at the divine stone above them. The divine stone had transformed into the sun. Looking up from below, it was almost indistinguishable from the sun itself, equally dazzling and blinding, enough to make one's eyes water after prolonged staring. Most importantly, warmth returned to their bodies. Their previously stiff, cold bodies, weakened by the sunlight, regained some vitality. This was especially true for those whose life force was waning and who would soon freeze to death. It was like a lifeline. In the distance, the old tortoise's eyes widened in astonishment as it gazed upwards. "A miracle," the old priest shouted, leading the way and kneeling in worship. The others, startled, quickly followed suit and knelt as well. Led by the old priest, the crowd began to pray aloud. Their prayers hadn't lasted long when the raindrops falling from the sky forced them to get up, otherwise, they would either freeze to death or fall ill if they stayed any longer. Even back in their houses, they couldn't help but excitedly discuss the divine power, marveling at its might. "A sun incarnate. Truly a god," the chief exclaimed. "Does that mean we won't have to freeze anymore?" Stone asked happily. "Look, the snow is starting to melt," someone exclaimed, pointing to the thick layer of snow on the ground. Stone and the others turned to look, and indeed, the white snow was beginning to melt. Thank God. High in the sky, Suyun silently experienced what it felt like to be the sun. It was truly unique. Time passed quickly, and 10 days went by no time. During this period, with the sunlight streaming down from the sky, no one in the tribe died again, and the accumulated snow melted into water. The entire tribe seemed vibrant with life, a stark contrast to the environment thousands of meters away. Outside, the weather was harsh and cold, the temperature even seemed to have dropped, and there was a deathly stillness. However, an unexpected situation occurred during these 10 days, surprising Suyun. As he transformed into the sun and increased in temperature, some of the surrounding animals actually began to gather towards him. Looking down from the sky, one could see that near the outer territory, A dense circle of creatures of different sizes and species surrounded the tribe. However, perhaps out of fear of him, not a single wild animal approached the tribe. With ample food, the believers naturally wouldn't cause trouble, and the two groups lived together in a strange yet harmonious way, which seemed particularly eerie. Su-Yun suddenly opened his eyes and looked out of the tribe. Thank you for 200 Kidian coins. Chapter 275 New Characters. Outside the tribe's territory, some commotion arose. Strange beasts. He discovered several strange beasts approaching. Having been suspended in the sky for so many days, this was the first time he'd seen them approach. 3 four-legged beasts of varying sizes, but somewhat resembling crocodiles, slowly crawled towards them. As soon as they approached, the crouching wild beasts sensed something and panicked, fleeing to other areas. With a loud boom, a large clearing was left. The largest of the 3, radiating a level 3 aura, glanced contemptuously at the wild beasts, not stopping their escape. The beasts settled in the clearing. Nearby, a smaller crocodile, presumably female, and a male beast exchanged a glance, then suddenly looked up at the sky. The small sun shining brightly overhead caused surprise and apprehension to flash in their eyes, followed by hesitation, as if considering whether to stay. However, when they looked at a small, clearly recently born, somewhat cartoonish baby crocodile beside them, a determined glint flashed in their eyes. Su-Yun, watching from above, scanned the area and basically understood why these strange beasts had come. He didn't try to drive them away. As long as they didn't invade the tribe, these beasts were no different from ordinary wild animals in his eyes, so he simply turned a blind eye. Time passed quickly, and another 5 days went by. During these 5 days, more and more animals gathered, gazing longingly at the sun overhead. Some of the more intelligent ones even performed acts of worship. Besides ordinary wild animals, even strange beasts began to appear frequently. But the most unusual sight was a group of primitive people, their bodies covered in bluish-purple hues. They had braved the wind and snow, gritting their teeth as they made their way to this place for refuge. Under the bright sunlight, these people jumped around joyfully, uttering various excited shouts. Su-Yun glanced at them and found only a little over 100 people, so he entrusted the matter to the priest, instructing him to try using food as bait to incorporate them into the tribe. That afternoon, the snow had just stopped, though the sun was still obscured by clouds. The weather had improved somewhat, though no more snow. At that moment, 3 burly men dressed in thick, warm animal skin coats were approaching the Yanhuang tribe from afar. I don't understand why the gods made us come to the Yanhuang tribe in such cold weather, complained the thin young man. Didn't the gods say they sent us to see if the Yanhuang tribe needed help? After all, it's so cold, said a middle-aged man with an ordinary, honest appearance. True, the young man said arrogantly, raising his head slightly. With so few people in the Yanhuang tribe, if some freeze to death, it would be heartbreaking. The middle-aged man nodded in agreement, clearly also not optimistic about the Yanhuang tribe. The man in front of the 2 men, listening to their conversation, frowned. How many times have I told you? The Yanhuang tribe is not simple. Have you forgotten their god of light? That's a god even the fire god acknowledges, a god no less powerful than the gods of the major tribes, he shouted sternly. It's fine for you to say this now, but if you dare to say it after entering the Yanhuang tribe, and it gets overheard, affecting the good relations between tribes, not only will I not forgive you, but the fire god will also severely punish you. The 2 were startled, and upon hearing such a serious consequence, they quickly shut their mouths. The middle-aged strong man glanced gratefully at Arm, who had reminded him, clearly having taken it to heart. As for the young man, he also responded, but there was still some hidden contempt in his eyes. After the 3 of them had spent some time and were almost at their destination, they stared at the unusual situation in the distance and were stunned. The sun, is this really the Yanhuang tribe? 2 surprised voices rang out. Arm scanned the sunlight, noticed a large number of animals, and the damp ground, and hesitated for a moment before saying, it should be, right, the environment hasn't changed, but what's above our heads? The 3 of them didn't know how to describe it, and could only look on in amazement. Was this created by the god of light? The thin young man guessed, his face showing fear and lingering apprehension. Thanks to Brother Arm's reminder, he thought thankfully. He would never underestimate the Yanhuang tribe again. Thinking about it, he sighed. No wonder the fire god told us to befriend the Yanhuang tribe, and said that the god of light was as powerful as him, even. Now I believe it, The middle-aged man also sighed. It's unimaginable how such a small tribe could have such a powerful god. Looking at the sun overhead, it didn't seem like they needed any help at all. They probably didn't even have a sun as powerful as the Yanhuang tribe before them. Look at that sun. This kind of method of completely changing the weather was far superior to their tribe's methods of keeping warm. It was simply terrifying. Arm came back to his senses. Alright, let's go in and see. Okay, the three of them released their auras, and the wild beasts scrambled away. However, a few strange beasts mixed in with the others caught their attention. Not long after entering the tribe, Arm was surprised to find that the priest of the Yanhuang tribe, leading dozens of people, came out to greet them, clearly having discovered their presence beforehand. The old priest approached and, recognizing Arm among the three, exclaimed in surprise, "Arm from the fire god tribe, what brings you here? The great fire god sent us to check on things. The weather is even colder this time, and the fire god thought you might need some help," Arm readily explained. Then, he said awkwardly, "But it seems we were overthinking it. Your tribe's methods are truly astonishing." The three showed expressions of admiration, feeling the warmth around them, and were even more impressed by the Yanhuang tribe's incredible abilities. They could even create a sun. "This has nothing to do with us," the old priest said with a smile, modestly. "It's all thanks to the gods." Arm and the other two exchanged knowing glances. After the old priest and the fire god tribe representatives exchanged compliments, Arm and the others brought up another matter. "Besides the previous reason, we hope to trade some more with you this time," Arm said. The old priest's eyes lit up slightly, and he smiled. "Our tribe has been producing a good amount of snowflake salt lately. Do you need any?" "Yes," the three replied in unison. Arm's eyes gleamed. He had wanted more snowflake salt last time and had been regretting it. He hadn't expected the Yanhuang tribe to produce so much this time. The three followed a Yanhuang priest inside. As soon as they entered, they were surprised to find that the expected few hundred people were actually much more numerous and bustling, a far cry from the previous quiet atmosphere. However, the three weren't surprised for long. Remembering the powerful strength of the god of light, they understood. After some discussion, Arm and the other two traded 50 pieces of porcelain and 30 small bowls of snowflake salt. According to the price, the old priest happily received 800 level 1 faith crystals. "Remember to come again next time," he said with a smile as he saw the three off. Arm and the other two didn't feel like they had been ripped off and nodded happily. With a smile, he said, "Then we'll be going. Hope to see you at the exchange meeting." After a brief moment of awkward silence, the three left the Yanhuang tribe. Walking on the snow-covered ground, deep footprints appeared one after another. If it weren't for their extraordinary strength, their toes would have turned blue and purple from the cold. The three couldn't help but recall the warm feeling of the Yanhuang tribe, and their hearts were filled with even more admiration. If we told the others in the tribe about this, they definitely wouldn't believe us, would they? The sun. The three walked further and further away, leaving only the lingering echoes of their amazement. Suyun hung in the sky for longer and longer, and more creatures gathered. At one point, he noticed that some of the more spiritual beasts actually produced threads of faith towards him, which truly surprised him for a while. Suyun couldn't help but think, as expected of the sun, if it were really a sun god, the gathered faith wouldn't be weak either, right? This spontaneous faith, born from worship, surprised him for a while. After maintaining this sun-like state for over a month, Suyun's divine body, which had been actively falling into a state of slumber, was suddenly awakened by a change in his divine body. A familiar yet peculiar fluctuation emanated from within his divine core space. He quickly shifted his consciousness into his divine core space, then stared in astonishment at an unfamiliar object. It was transparent and colorless, like crystal, circular in shape, with waves around the edge, resembling the pattern of a sun. "A new character," Suyun murmured in surprise. He never expected that after the sun had been hanging for over a month, a completely new character would appear. Suyun glanced at his divine core, and a transparent thread shot out from it, instantly connecting with the newly appeared character. Chapter 276 Terrifying New Characters. The emerald green quickly permeated the transparent character, soon turning the entire character emerald green. However, the permeation didn't stop there. A new color began to stain the character, cyan. The cyan color rapidly permeated, finally stopping at a little over 40%. Suyun glanced at the percentage of cyan and secretly estimated it. Since his last advancement, almost 2 months had passed in the other world, and a few days in the real world. During these few days, several events had caused a dramatic increase in faith threads. Now, a quick glance revealed that it had more than doubled, reaching a little over 200,000 faith threads. The next advancement should require 500,000 people. I'm still short over 200,000, Su-Yun muttered to himself. After calculating the number needed for the next advancement, he turned his gaze to the dyed sun character. Without much thought, he activated the character. The next moment, with a boom, he transformed into a huge orange-gold sphere. A layer of flames enveloped him, flowing slowly like magma. Su-Yun was startled and subconsciously touched the flames. They were warm to the touch, like flowing water, and then he realized something. This wasn't the flame he initially thought, but something akin to a combination of light and energy, only resembling flames in appearance. Like the sun in the real world, seemingly a fiery red expanse with flowing magma, but actually not. The flames around the sun are simply formed by light, magnetic fields, and heat, because there's no oxygen on the sun, so there's no condition for fire to survive. The thing around him was similar to the sun. Just as Su-Yun understood this, his expression changed drastically due to the surrounding situation. An intense heat appeared in the divine stone space, seemingly distorting the space itself. The ground beneath his feet was scorched by the flames surrounding him, almost melting away. Startled, he moved swiftly, flying directly to the center of the divine stone space, only then stopping the destruction. That was close. Su-Yun breathed a sigh of relief. If it weren't for the strong resistance of the divine stone space, which had already expanded to over 200 square meters after this period of development, it might have truly been destroyed. However, Su-Yun had just breathed a sigh of relief when he was shocked by the noisy prayers of the believers and the scene witnessed by the Holy Sun's physical body. "It's so hot, what's happening? Help!" The people who had been chatting and laughing suddenly noticed something was wrong. The surroundings seemed much brighter, and the previously normal temperature had suddenly changed. The air was becoming increasingly hot. Feeling the intense heat emanating from the sky, people instinctively looked up. The small sun overhead, radiating golden light, had suddenly turned orange-gold, blindingly bright. In just a few minutes, those who had been tormented by the cold now experienced true heat, sweating profusely and terrified. This temperature was hotter than the hottest days they had ever experienced. It was simply uninhabitable. Outside their sight, the animals panicked, screaming in terror, as if their fur was about to catch fire. Their first instinct was to run into the snow, but what they saw stunned them. The sunlight, which had previously only covered a few kilometers, now extended far beyond that limit, distorting the air as far as the eye could see. The thick snow on the ground was melting at an alarming rate. Screaming in shock, the heat on their fur made them disregard everything else, plunging headfirst into the half-melted snow. Only then did the feeling of being alive return to them. However, this was merely a temporary fix. If they didn't escape the blazing sun, all the wild animals, except for the powerful beasts, would eventually be roasted to a crisp. Inside the divine stone space, Su-Yun's expression was grave. He estimated that the outside temperature was at least 70 degrees Celsius. He quickly cancelled the effect of the character. "We're saved," the 2,000+ people exclaimed, still shaken. The wild animals also let out various whimpers and squeals, thankful they had escaped death. "This character almost caused a drought. It's truly terrifying," Su-Yun murmured. "It's truly unbelievable that it almost turned the harsh winter into a living hell." Su-Yun was certain that this character was definitely the one with the largest influence range and the most hostile to ordinary living beings among all his characters. Although the time he had just used it was short, he still sensed some things. For example, the effective range of this divine technique, relying on the special properties of sunlight, reached tens of thousands of meters, which is an astonishing tens of kilometers. That's more than 10 times the range of a normal divine technique. It's equivalent to the area of a large city. In other words, if Su-Yun wanted to, he could descend upon a city in the form of the sun and give people a hellish experience. It probably wouldn't be long before that city turned into a dead zone. That situation is probably similar to 10 suns in the sky, right? At that time, there will definitely be beings like Hao Yi who want to shoot me down, Su-Yun thought with a strange feeling. In addition to the amazing range, he also figured out some other characteristics of this divine technique. For example, he could control the temperature. The situation just now wasn't even at the highest temperature. Also, this divine technique wasn't limited to transforming himself into the sun. He also sensed that it could be released externally, so it should be able to be used to smash people. Finally, the divine power consumption of this divine spell is somewhat unique. Aside from the initial massive consumption of divine power upon activation, maintaining that sun-like state consumes surprisingly little power afterward, allowing it to be sustained indefinitely, a truly unusual phenomenon. With this divine spell, playing the sun god will be much easier. Suyun's lips curled into a slight smile. A series of plans for his future role as the sun god immediately flashed through his mind. After a while, never mind, let's familiarize ourselves with it first. Suyun suddenly controlled a divine stone, continuing to fly higher into the sky. Before long, he reached an altitude of over 10,000 meters and released the divine spell again. A burst of scorching sunlight erupted, and the creatures below, who had been panicked by the loss of the sun, gradually calmed down. Centered on the Yanhuang tribe, an area spanning dozens of kilometers was enveloped in sunlight, turning winter into summer. The impact of this was no less than, and perhaps even greater than, the effect of dispelling the dark clouds last time. With sunlight reaching such a great distance, it naturally enveloped other tribes as well. Keep in mind that the Ice tribe is only a dozen kilometers away from the Yanhuang tribe, and there are countless other tribes of all sizes in the surrounding area. In just a moment, Suyun arbitrarily bathed them in sunlight. Thank you Light Sorrow for the 100 book coins reward. Chapter 277 The God's Speculation. In the icy wilderness, numerous primitive people huddled in caves or thatched huts, shivering against each other. Their genitals were bluish-purple, and even their breathing was weak. If nothing unexpected happened, it was estimated that many would die by the end of this harsh winter. These were the most miserable tribes. Some tribes that had mastered fire were in slightly better shape, but overall, they weren't much better off. Besides humans, everything in the forest, from insects to wild beasts, huddled together in their dens, shivering. Even their thick fur made them feel the chill, and they could only desperately endure it, hoping that time would pass quickly and they could survive the winter. Just as the forest creatures were struggling for survival, a familiar ray of hope shone down from the sky. Within a radius of dozens of miles, almost all the creatures were stunned, their expressions dazed by the sunlight covering them. Their first reaction was that they were hallucinating, but after the warm sunlight dispelled some of the chill, they stared wide-eyed. Instinctively, many creatures looked towards the direction from which the sunlight was coming. A sun, gleaming with orange-gold light, had appeared high in the distant sky, emanating its brilliant rays. The addition of this sun shocked the primitive people and the strange beasts. Some tribesmen, who were expected to perish this winter, cried out and prayed in the direction of the sun. The gods and powerful beasts, however, were filled with astonishment and speculation. That direction, who is it? Such a wide-ranging ability. Which god possesses such power? I don't know them, several gods exclaimed in shock. Judging from the sunlight stretching as far as the eye could see, this god's strength was at least level 4, possibly even level 5. How could they not recognize such a powerful god? Wait. That direction, some gods felt the direction of the sun seemed familiar. In a flash, they remembered, wasn't this the location of the Yanhuang tribe? What was going on? The attack that erupted from that place last time was one thing, but this wide-ranging ability was clearly beyond the capabilities of a level 3 god. But this sunlight, it seems to have some connection to the god of light, right? Is it possible? Could it be that the god of light is a level 4? This astonished thought uncontrollably popped into their minds. But they couldn't believe it. The other party was only rumored to be a level 3 god. How could it change so quickly, becoming a level 4 in the blink of an eye? Not only were the gods and beasts within the sunlight's reach shocked, but others far outside the sunlight's coverage also noticed the anomaly. A range of tens of kilometers, even a blind person could see something was wrong, right? The god of fire gazed into the distance, staring intently at the distant orange-gold light, muttering to himself, that direction. God of light, your strength has increased again. After the three of them returned from the Yanhuang tribe, he naturally learned from them about the god of light's actions regarding the cold winter. Thinking about how the other party could create a sun, he was incredibly impressed. Now, even from such a distant place, they could notice the anomaly. Clearly, the range of the sunlight's coverage had increased, otherwise, this situation couldn't be explained. This indirectly proves that the god of light's strength has definitely increased. Could it be that your strength has reached level 4? The god of fire guessed with suspicion. Then, he felt he was overthinking it and chuckled. How could that be? The last time I saw the God of Light, he was only level 3, and his followers hadn't increased much? It shouldn't be possible. Despite his strong denial, a trace of uncertainty remained in his heart. However, regardless, he should be able to see the God of Light at the exchange competition, and then he would know what was going on. Besides the God of Fire's suspicion, the God of Gale, who was relatively close, saw the sunlight and immediately thought of the God of Light. In addition, since the other party was in that location, suspicion flashed in his eyes immediately. That freak, his strength has increased again. The next second, he denied it. No, impossible, I don't believe it. It must be the effect of some kind of divine artifact, right? He guessed with certainty. The goddess of the forest looked in that direction, her mouth slightly agape in surprise. The god of rain thought that no matter what happened, as long as he could establish a good relationship with the God of Light, that would be the best course of action. Besides the gods familiar to Su-Yun, other large and small tribal gods also cast strange glances in that direction. Boom, boom, boom. In an environment crackling with lighting, a tall, muscular man in his 30s with a full white beard and bulging muscles suddenly opened his eyes. Gazing in that direction, he was slightly surprised, then laughed. Interesting. It seems a new god with considerable strength has appeared. I wonder how strong he is. Saying this, he closed his eyes again, his face full of confidence. Even if that new god is powerful, so what? As long as he's not as strong as him, he can only suppress his arrogance and submit to his lightning. Just a new god. Su-Yun was unaware of the effects he had caused. After adjusting the temperature and recasting the characters, he felt quite good, as if he had truly become the sun. If my strength were a few levels higher, I might actually be able to replace the sun, Su-Yun sighed. The range of the characters was still too small. With his current strength, he couldn't possibly achieve the feat of illuminating the world. Now that the effects are tested, it's time to name the new character ability, Su-Yun pondered. Thinking of the sun, his eyes lit up slightly. Let's call it Corona Spell. Time flew by quickly, and another month passed. Several events occurred during this time, causing the old priest to beam with joy. Due to the intense sunlight, even people outside the icy wilderness could see it. Tribes struggling to survive gritted their teeth and made a decision to migrate to the sunlit area. These small tribes endured countless hardships, even losing many lives, to finally reach the sunlit region. The moment the sunlight touched them, they wept with joy, excitedly gazing at the sun overhead. A small number of tribes settled down, while most had more to think about. The sun was so close, should they go and search for it? They considered that the sun might be related to a great god. Since this god was so powerful, why not join them? After all, their tribe didn't have a god. If they could join that powerful tribe, wouldn't that be a huge win? End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.